Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's got Star Trek. Episode 22. Voyager Season 4. Year of Hell, Parts 1 and 2.
The ultimate weapon
We have all eternity to accomplish our mission.
does not destroy,
Captain, there's a spatial distortion heading toward us.
it erases.
All organisms and man-made objects have been eradicated.
Now Voyager gets caught in the crossfire.
All hands brace for impact.
Can a device that alters time ever be destroyed?
It's trying to erase us from history.
On the next Star Trek Voyager.
What's the word, Dan? What's the word?
Chronoton-based torpedoes.
Yeah, that's the word, man. You know,
That is the word.
That's like 3 words.
And the episode, what's the episode?
oh, this would be Star Trek Voyager, season 4, episode 16.
It's like a 2-parter. That's
what's
like
the name of it?
within the season. It's not like a 2-parter that overlaps a season, all TNG stuff.
Yeah, mid-season.
Overlaps 2 seasons.
It's like a mid-season thing. The episode name is Year of Hell, Parts 1 and 2. 2 episodes, technically.
Yeah.
But we watched them together. What's the name of the podcast, Jesse?
It's got Star Trek.
That's right. You're listening
I remembered.
Yeah, you did. You're listening to the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Dan insists on this part, so I'm going to say my name, and then they'll say their names.
I insist upon it.
My name is Patrick, and then Dan's name. What's your name, Dan?
Jesse.
My name is Dan.
All right.
I'm being difficult. Now that I was being pushy and annoying, now I'm being difficult.
This is a holdover from the previous episode.
I'm Dan.
When Dan insisted that that the audience
I'm Dan.
would want to know.
Well, they did because there
Their
was
names.
someone specifically was like, I don't know that
guy
person's
that talks
name.
like this, his name is Dan.
In the comment, they couldn't recall that they said, I don't know the person's name.
Right.
But it was not followed with a request.
Right, but
to
that's
learn
where,
our names.
But that's where, because I'm an astute observer, I was like, they should know my name, and it's a fault of mine for them not knowing my name. It's not something that they should request or want to know. It's something that they should just know.
It's a courtesy, you're saying.
No, it's
A podcaster courtesy.
it's an imposition. I'm
It's an imposition on who? On you?
on them.
It's an imposition on them if they don't know the name.
If you
But
have,
if they do know the name, because like they didn't ask for it, but I'm gonna make them know it.
they can hear what you sound like, and then if they know your name, and then they can start imagining what you look like. What does this guy look like?
yeah, but it's like when
His
you
name is Dan, and he sounds like this.
you listen to people on the radio and you imagine what they look like, and they never end up looking like you think. They're always short and have really dark hair for some reason.
Well,
Always.
I'm just saying, like part
big
of
glasses.
part of advertising, it's not about like giving them what they want, it's telling them what they need
Wait, what?
and then forcing it upon them
For the
so they
most
can't
part.
live without it. So it's more important to me
So
that
you're
they know my
creating
name than
you're
they
cre-
do.
You're creating a market.
yes,
for our
branding.
names.
This is branding.
Branding.
So what you need is to know our names.
First, they got to remember the name of the podcast, though. If they remember that, they're in.
It's got Star Trek.
It's got Star Trek. They can get in on all sorts of angles. Like any angle you can get, any digital angle, I should say.
Like
We gotta work on the
Kurt
analog.
Angle.
90 degrees and
Kurt Angle won Olympic gold medal in wrestling.
That's an excellent point.
you should say that for the It's Got Kurt Angle's podcast.
Kurt Angle, all about Kurt Angle.
All right, so
I have to correct myself.
Okay.
I don't know where I got episode 16 from. That might have been like a holdover from the day.
that was last year.
That
Yeah,
was,
Thy Known Self was season
like
7, episode 16.
yeah, this is episode 8 and 9 of season 4.
8 and 9.
Yeah.
8 and 9.
Not too far into the
Year of Hell, parts 1 and 2, Star Trek Voyager. So, let's get started. What did you think?
Well,
Is that what we do? Do we say what we think? I'm not entirely clear.
it doesn't matter what.
Are you
just
gonna,
chat.
Are you going to tell us what you think, Dan?
What do you think, Dan?
I did not really remember this episode, and then I remember the reason I got interested in it because I was reading about Voyager, and this popped up in a discussion. I was like, I don't really remember that episode, but the way they're talking about it makes it sound really awesome. And, you know, it wasn't difficult to watch the episode. I'll say that much.
I have no idea how to interpret that. Do you mean do you mean it was enjoyable? It was sufficiently enjoyable?
Yeah,
Or
it wasn't arduous. Like the process was not arduous.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it was.
I want to. I like this scale. I like this rating scale for television shows.
Not
like
arduous.
arduosity scale.
Yeah.
Dan's copyright. That's Dan, by the way, who's talking.
You could just
Yeah,
sort of
it's me.
sit there and not have to put a lot of effort into watching it, and it just washed over you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I didn't. And I
You're
was never.
describing a television show. I mean, that is what television usually.
It just wasn't arduous.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at my watch.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like it instilled you with the type of excitement that you were hoping for.
I think like when I read the description, I had an unrealistic expectation because I felt that perhaps Year of Hell was going to be more based around permanent changes. And then in the opening when he's like, time weapon, I was like, oh, none of this is going to matter,
Yeah, it is. I think, a lot of people believe this and assert that this is one of the better episodes of Voyager.
It is.
And I tend to agree. I remember watching this when it was first on the air, and I really enjoyed watching it this time. I think it's a very good story and good two-parter. But it
97? Is it from 97?
Yeah, 1997. But it does, like a lot of Star Trek and a fair amount of sci-fi, but it's really comes up a lot in Star Trek. The whole reset button issue is somewhat acute here because it effectively erases everything that happened.
Yeah, it's like a dream episode.
Yeah, and that's not. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm not somebody who's against the idea of a reset button episode, but it does. I don't know. It shows us what these characters would have done in this situation, and then reprieves them by not having them have to be in that situation at all. So we as the audience still understand how their characters would react. And in typical Star Trek fashion, it's largely positive. Every single character pretty much is like doing the proper Starfleet thing here. And depending on your perspective, that can be good or bad. It can be good in the sense that, like, yes, we now have evidence that all these disparate characters, B'Elanna Torres, Tom Paris, Chakotay, they're all approaching it in their own way, but they do handle the situation and they come out well, even as horrific as it is. The counterpoint to that is that is potentially a less interesting story to see that, yeah, everything worked out basically fine.
Yeah, and I know that there's a whole like Marvel Comics series that's What If comics, basically, where all sorts of weird shit happens and it just goes away because it's what if. And it blatantly just says, it doesn't try to like hide it behind a dream or anything. It's just like, what if this happened? And that's what they're going for. And I know it's okay to have a dream episode. It's fine. And I think it lets you explore their characters without having to deal with any repercussions. And that's kind of how Voyager explored things, but it's just another reminder that Voyager really took no risks
it's
at
sort
all.
of like that's sort of like the flaw.
Yeah.
The flaw. Yeah.
Because like this is the kind of stuff that should be happening to them all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, you're stranded in the Delta Quadrant. Okay, well, who cares? You're like in you got a top of the line fucking Starfleet vessel. Who gives a fuck? Like, you're just going to be they're just going around the Delta Quadrant, like having adventures like TNG. Like, this is the kind of stuff that should be happening where it's like, where they have to like abandon the ship and then it should keep going and like they're all split up and like, that would be Star Trek Voyager, man.
This is what Ron Moore thought Star Trek Voyager was going to be. He was working on Deep Space Nine and he eventually went on to do Battlestar Galactica, and by all accounts, part of his motivation for doing Battlestar Galactica was trying to right the wrongs from his perspective of the missed opportunities, let's say, of Voyager, not fully kind of digging into this concept of a lonely ship in the middle of nowhere.
In more trouble. Yeah, like
So if you're gonna, I guess the advantage of doing episodes like this, though, is you can really put them through some shit. Because at the same time, you don't want to paint yourself in a corner.
Yeah.
They still have a rest of the series to deal with. So, is it taking advantage of the fact that they're sort of serializing this idea that should be more, have more continuity to it? So like, I don't know. it's also hard because it's looking back from the lens of today or whatever.
Sure.
Although I'd argue I'm more tolerable of Dream episodes maybe today than I would have been 10 years ago, just because there was a strong period of hate towards Dream episodes, and while I don't think they're fantastic, usually it's kind of like, I think that opinion has been expressed.
And you know,
but it doesn't change the kind of irritation it brings.
This is similar to, you know, there's the Mirror Universe episodes are a good example where it's an opportunity to take your characters and do things to them that normally would not be permissible within the basic story that you've set up, you know. And, you know, one way to look at it, of course, is that they were risk averse. Another way is that they were being as creative as they could within the constraints they were given. They were supposed to be producing an episodic TV show. So they were limited in what they could do. And this is a 2-part episode, right? So they didn't try to squeeze this into one episode, although you know, one could argue maybe it would be, you know, you could tighten it up a little bit here and there. But, you know, I think a lot of folks who have seen this, and I'm one who kind of agrees, is I like this episode, but when I'm watching it, I'm thinking this should have been a season. This should have been a stretched out over a season where they're getting into adventures. They're slowly like, you know, they're getting like degraded over time.
It shouldn't have just been fixed in like 2 episodes.
Yeah. On Annorax keeps showing up.
The troubles should have continued.
And even if they reset, you know, at the end in some way, it still would have been cool to like kind of experience some of that. Although the reset thing is kind of what nags at me a little bit, because for the characters themselves, they don't have this knowledge that the audience has, that they would, you know, be able to make it through this thing.
Right. And so the question then goes back to, again, of the reset things allows them to go extra far, but would it be worth it to get rid of the
acid reflux?
Yeah, the reset. Would it be worth it to get rid of the reset? But in order to do so, they might have to tone it back a couple notches, because it ends up in some kind of like shitty, like what is it? What's the shit called when the evacuation?
Yeah, when all the crew.
Ship.
Yeah.
What are those things called? Escape pods.
God
damn, my memory. Escape. I don't understand.
And she crashes
English.
the fucking ship into the other
Which is
fucking
cool.
ship,
And
but she only does that because she knows that it'll reset the timeline,
or at least she's like, that's the last thing we can do.
Yeah,
They would at least have had to tone back that part, right? But like,
and we would have missed that awesome imagery, which was kind of awesome.
but it's still pretty
time's up.
But
yeah.
Oh God, yeah, they really couldn't resist that one. They were just like, we've gone this far, we have to do like an 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger commando like style line. Time's up. It was just, you know, oh man. Well, I'll ask this. I have a word question later.
Words,
but
later.
I mean, it's we can start
warm
now.
words.
But what was we were talking about? Oh yeah, so you couldn't. By the way, when she was sitting there looking out of the ship before she crashed in, the ship was all busted, and you could see that weird
The force fields.
that weird like antique lamp thing flying through the sky.
Yeah.
That thing.
Oh, yeah,
Or it's like a hookah or something. Flying space hookah. But before she did, she was sitting there and staring out. And you could see it. Those scenes are always okay. So scenes like that are cool, but they're hard to really picture. It makes me wish VR was like we could do VR with stuff like that.
So you can kind of look around and get the real vibe of it.
Yeah, because if I was playing like this first person shooting game. Actually, it's Borderlands. I was playing Borderlands 2 and I really like that game. It's just a first person shooter.
Borderlands.
And so when you play it, right, it's first person shooter, you see the depth of field and stuff, but it's like you don't realize how you're not getting the depth until you put on some VR.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing that in VR and I was like, wow, I'm in a field, I can tell how far things are away. I feel like it's like I know I'm not in a field, but it's like it's amazing the depth and the perspective you get from looking at that stuff. I remember some review of this Aliens game where they were playing in VR and they said it was incredible just to like stand at the ship's window and stare at like other ships and planets and stuff like that in VR. It's just, you just stand there and watch it. So scenes like that. Also there was the scene in,
They look like worms.
Like worms.
You look out the window.
Look like worms in space.
You see like worms.
Worms and marbles.
Marbles.
All you know they moving.
Wax dental floss.
You know they moving so fast. They moving so fast, it's like they're not even moving.
How fast are they moving?
So fast they're not. They get away from each other and there's nothing around to make it look like it's moving anywhere. So how are they moving? So what I was going though is Discovery, right? They had the scene with Burnham was sitting in the prison place.
Yeah.
the brig or whatever, and then all the ship around. That was Discovery, right? Where all the
Yes.
ship was blown up around her.
Yeah.
That was cool. It reminded me of that. It reminded me also of Star Trek, the first episode with James T. Kirk, when they get down on that planet. And
Where
they're all
no
like,
man has gone before.
where he goes, yeah, there's nothing left but us chickens or whatever. That line.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, before they walk into this, there's this sort of
Nobody here but us chickens.
yeah, this kind of like something farm, alien planet farm of machinery that's giant in the background, and this little building they're standing next to, and it's totally like an awesome drawn painted backdrop, and it looks really cool. But at the same time, I have to sit there and watch it to really try to feel like I'm in it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it's cool. It just makes me wish I was that much closer. But yeah, that was cool. And so that scene was cool. And then she flew into it. But that didn't take away from the fact that was pretty cool to think about.
And, I thought, especially for 1997, they did a great job with the, not just the special effects of the ships and stuff, where we got to see some cool things, especially towards the final battle when ships crashing into each other.
Yeah,
and shit
that's
like
always
that.
fun. It's interesting to compare that with, what is it? Not Last Jedi, the one before, the Phantasm Jedi.
The Phantasm Jedi.
Yeah, Star Wars 8, the Phantasm.
That
Jedi.
was the Last Jedi. Or you mean the last one?
What was the last one? Was Rise of
Skywalker.
Rise of the Skywalker. Right. So it was the Last Jedi.
It was.
That was
Yeah,
a good one. Yeah.
that was the one. So yeah, compare that. Obviously, there are different eras. So try to not get. But which
I'll try not to.
I'll try my best. Watching Netflix Star Trek Voyager, it's always like looks all shitty.
Well, it's because it is shitty,
yeah,
and just we can take a brief digression to note that when we're dealing with Voyager and Deep Space Nine, unfortunately, we're kind of all fucked.
the compression seems
Because
bad or
they
something.
have not upgraded those. They've not gone through the process of updating those to HD. And
There's a bunch of squares everywhere.
well, and I it's weird because I totally understand like the business and economics
Yeah,
of
I
it.
mean, I'm
but
not-
as a Star
I
Trek
ain't
fan,
mad.
it's maddening.
Yeah.
Because first of all, because Deep Space Nine is generally my favorite series,
Mm-hmm.
so I really would like to see that in top quality. And Voyager deserves it as well. It has a big fan base.
Mm-hmm.
But the original series was shot on film, so it was really easy for them. They upgraded
Right.
the
it looks so
the ship
good.
stuff, but
Yeah.
the film and it was shot by like proper fucking cinematographers back in the day. That was like they were all experimenting with color and shit. So the HD versions of those are amazing.
yeah,
right?
it's so cool.
TNG also shot on film, but the thing is that the final episodes were they were edited and produced and put down to like fancy broadcast VHS tape. So for TNG, it was a little bit more complicated because they had to go back to the original film negatives and rebuild everything. But it wasn't so complicated because they, scan that shit in, clean it up a little bit. They've got the original episode, so they can just slot it in and have somebody sit there and do the editing, fix a few special effects. Enterprise natively shot in HD, right? First in HD film and then in HD digital. Of course, Discovery, Picard, etc., filmed in HD. Voyager and Deep Space Nine were shot on film, but the special effects, it's a similar situation to TNG, but they did have a little bit more complicated special effects that would all have to be redone. Right? Because the special effects, there's just no choice there. They would have to completely redo the special effects. And the TNG process is really expensive. And they did it for TNG figuring they were going to make bank on that shit because they were selling those DVD sets for like $150 or something when they first came out. But the fans, just not enough people bought them. Right? Because they were fucking expensive. And frankly, I think a lot of people at that time didn't have Blu-rays. So anyway, they just don't see it's worth the investment. The cost of it, at least at this stage, is so expensive.
There's nothing they're going to really gain from it.
Yeah, but the good thing is technology is changing, costs are going down. They had this cool new. A lot of people you see online, they've been doing it with DS9 and Voyager episodes where they'll like they use AI algorithms.
Yeah, I was
and like
just
NVIDIA cards to like upgrade them.
I was just gonna say on my NVIDIA Shield, it has that AI. I forget what it's called exactly, but it's like AI HD or something, AI upscaling or AI something like that. But you have different levels that you can set it to. It's really weird when you set it to the max and you watch cartoons. It's like it's kind of
Set it to the max.
Well, and
it doesn't look great. It looks better without it in that instance.
Well, and what has to be done properly, it has to be, calibrated and multiples, not just that process. There's like multiple processes all going on at once. But even there, the special effects still are the thing things that they don't. It's hard for those if they're not redone to be upgraded. So anyway, I'm hoping that soon we'll be able to watch Deep Space Nine and Voyager at some point in the not too distant future in nice HD, because those are both beautifully shot shows for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I know that with emulation and stuff, Nintendo games, they specifically, because it's, I know I feel so whiny being like, it just looks so shitty, but
it does look shitty.
It does look shitty, and it looked better on a CRT. And
yeah,
because
it looks shittier than on a. Yeah.
It was made to look on a CRT.
Precisely.
And it's like Nintendo games on a HD are kind of neat just because it's so weird looking. But
it's better to put that emulated filter.
Yeah, the
on
filter
it.
on it. The
CRT filter.
Yeah, and those filter to fuzz it up and do. There's different ones you can put on. To make
it does
cool.
the lines. There's
one you can do to make like really lines. They can make it look all cell shaded. They can do weird shit. But like even just to you're talking about the scan lines.
Yeah,
and stuff.
like the scan line.
Like you can have it imitate the what's this the coax input, so it like looks kind of shittier, but I like that, and I don't know how difficult that would be if you could do anything similar at all with shows, but who knows? Probably not for some reason.
But with luck, there'd be enough of a fan base or a streaming network or somebody out there. Maybe CBS. CBS is trying to collect all the Star Treks onto.
That would
CBS
be something
All
that could
Access.
get people over more. Is doing stuff like that with the.
Of course, with businesses, I mean, they're getting enough people with Discovery and Picard, and now they have, I think, most of the other Trek series anyway. They're still available on Netflix and Amazon, of course, but I think they're also on CBS All Access. So, anyway, eventually, probably CBS All Access will be the only place you can watch any Star Trek, and with luck, they'll want to do it, because I think an episode like this is a very good example. Like Year of Hell. In HD, I mean, you would really appreciate that shit, especially like all the stuff with Annorax, on his ship. Like the ship just looks cool, and the way it's lit, and like his whole vibe. Kurtwood Smith, who plays Annorax, is always a great actor.
We're talking about Kurtwood Smith again. This time, he's Kurtwood Space Maniac.
He's got funny
Time Maniac.
funny bits on the side of his face.
Yeah, I know. I kept wanting to be like, "Are you all right, dude?"
Space blisters.
Space Time Psycho.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's talk about him, right?
Oh wait. Well, my question was, what was gonna be anyways?
What's your question?
Was this a word question?
No. And the reason I just go back to it is because, it's got to close those threads. Comparing that with the Last Jedi scene where the super boomy...
Smashy the ship.
Where Galadriel flew it into...
That wasn't Galadriel.
Oh, no, that wasn't Galadriel. That was...
It was Laura Dern from Jurassic Park.
That was right, Laura Dern. Oh, I'm so stupid. You're so stupid, Dan.
Hey.
Oh, Laura, that's right. She was on that.
That was
movie.
not Galadriel. But anyway, so
She was like an admiral.
yeah,
You're just like a blonde lady.
yeah, that sucks in me.
Blonde lady.
But which explosion looked cooler, not better, but which?
Oh, for me, The Last Jedi. I really liked it. I know some people are like, why don't they just do this all the time? Okay, fair point. I never took Star Wars that seriously to begin with. I like Star Wars, but Star Wars for me has largely been fun story, cool special effects and fights and stuff. And I like that scene in Last Jedi.
What do you think, Jesse? So the last scene in Last Jedi or in Voyager where the ship did the rammy thing?
Which one? Voyager, when Voyager rammed Annorax's ship, or when that other ship got disabled and smashed into Voyager?
Which one's a better?
Oh no,
explosion?
No, I'm saying the one, Patrick, the one where the Voyager runs into the flying space hookah.
Yeah,
that one, or
It's pretty good.
versus the Last Jedi where Laura Dern runs into.
I don't really remember that, so
You don't remember Star Wars?
I only saw that movie like once.
Wow.
I remember it because it was a really impactful scene. Love it or hate it, visually and auditorily. Because the great thing in the Last Jedi is where the audio all drops out.
Yeah.
And it's been really loud in that theater, and then all of a sudden it's like boop.
Yeah. No, I'm not jonesing for you. I'm jonesing for you, but I'm not joning on you.
You're not
I'm
joning
just
on
surprised because you're pretty,
Jonin.
pretty Star Wars kind of guy.
Jonin is a slang term.
I didn't really get into a lot of the newer ones.
No, I understand that too because I have issues as well.
Well, what do you think, Dan? You're asking the question. What do you think?
Man, I don't even have an opinion.
I'm asking the questions here.
You got it.
Hey.
It's just I bring it up because it's the different kind of thing with the Voyager has the crumbly, it looks like I don't know if it is, but it looks like it probably isn't. It's probably CGI, but
I think it was largely digital.
yeah, but it looks more like a model breaking up than it does for some reason. It just crumbles in this weird way. Which
it's also the mentality of the time, because I think a lot of the people who were working digital in that era were previously working with models, right? And so their mentality, for better or for worse, is sort of tied into the model. What they're doing is they're imagining models and then pushing them beyond what models could do, but not yet beyond, like not yet into the wide open imagination that's available with CGI, which of course can be a tremendous fucking burden and backfire on you greatly, because if you have no constraints in your mind of physics, that's one of the biggest complaints people will have in some Star Trek and
in Star Wars when the Death Star exploded and they added the Halo explosion thing to the Death Star.
They added the Praxis effect.
Oh yeah,
effectively.
Yeah, right. Where just the wave.
Yeah,
They use Dolby too.
They use Dolby. Yeah, Praxis and Dolby both at the same time. Oh, so yeah, I guess so back to like the idea of how far should they pull it back? You know, would it have been okay to end that episode if they didn't reset it? End it on just this like escape pod and runabout armada flying through space. Like, could they have kept pulling that off?
I hope so. I wish.
I get what your point. I mean, and also we would be robbed of that great visual, right? This episode does have a really good sort of arc to it, because it begins all peaceful and it ends all peaceful, but there's that there's that viciousness throughout it that kind of builds, and the ultimate action, of course, is Janeway sacrificing herself to destroy this ship. And at least my impression is that she had no particular knowledge that it would necessarily reset things. I think that was an idea that was floating around there.
She was hoping that it was.
It was not.
She was hoping hard. She was like, "Turn off your temporal shields because we're gonna blow this up and hope something happens where it sends us all back to where we're supposed to be."
But I think it's important to note that while that idea, that theory, that hypothesis, I should say, was out there, it wasn't like sometimes you see on TNG with like Data or somebody where it's like, oh no, this will be what happens if we do this.
Right.
This is she was unsure, but of course she was willing to do it anyway. I mean, this whole episode is really focused on this idea of Janeway willing to mutilate her body and ultimately sacrifice her life for the sake of saving this ship. Now you could argue that there's a problem with that, and maybe that's not the most sensible thing to do, or what an actual practical military commander would do, because a ship is just a ship in the end. It's ultimately a piece of equipment.
She was rocking it this whole episode, though. She was going the extra bit.
There was the so she had the doctor on the one hand trying to keep her, her like from dying physically, basically. And it was so sad when he kept being like, "I'm going to have to, relieve you of duty." And she's like, "How are you going to do that, man?" Right. And he
Which
just
is kind of fucked up, right?
It's fucked up. And he had that look on his face where it's like, I don't know, if you really disappointed a family member and they told you, "Don't do this, you can't do this," and you kind of push them aside and do it anyways, and they're like, they're too feeble to stop you for whatever reason. It's
he's
just
a Starfleet hologram. It's like he's got to go by the book, but like, what's he going to do if you don't go by the book?
He can't do anything.
He's a hologram. What
so he just looks all sad, and he's like, "I'm gonna write this down." And she's like, "Oh yeah, please do. That would be much preferable to what kind of shit we're going through now."
I'm gonna reset the timeline. But nobody's gonna know.
But I don't know. From my vantage point, I don't think they did an adequate job of really explaining what they were doing there with her effectively disobeying orders, because traditionally in the Star Trek universe, if a captain is going to disobey orders, it's pretty clear they're disobeying orders for, maybe they're taking a risk, but they're doing it for like the right reason. But in this scenario, everything the doctor was saying was correct, saying like, "Look, there's other people on this ship, and like we can handle this shit for like, I'm just asking you to chill out for a few fucking days. Let us handle this so you can be the best captain you can be." No. And I kind of I'm listening to the doctor, and I'm like, he's fucking right. Chill take a fucking break and have some coffee.
Take a break, yeah.
Well, I mean, so what I was saying before about he was sort of trying to take care of her physically and trying to say, "Stop doing this," and she disobeyed orders, right? It's like, what are you doing? But that also happened sort of in the reverse way with Tuvok, because he was trying to take care of her mentally. He was like, okay, side note, of course, like, how is a replicated watch going to have any kind of meaning? I guess it's the thought that counts. It's, I guess, when you're in a world where you can replicate anything, how do you make something meaningful for someone? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you whatever. So he gave her some shit he replicated. But anyways, point being is that she was like, you just throw this away. He's like, come on, chill out. You need to take care of like your emotions, your mind, and all that stuff. And so where she disobeyed the doctor and he was trying to make her chill physically, he actually disobeyed her by not throwing away the watch when he told her to. So both cases, she was like on both sides of it. In both cases, she's like, no, I'm not going to do it.
And there's a third case too, which is Chakotay and Tom Paris when they're taken prisoner.
Yeah, that's all right.
And Chakotay is all trying to tell, and we'll talk about Chakotay's deal in a second, because I honestly am very confused as to what was going on there. But Chakotay was telling Paris, no, I'm not against you, but like, I'm your commanding officer. Yeah. And like, either we're going to keep doing this or not, or we're going to be like, get old school, which was basically what's like, because he was threatening Tom Paris. And Tom Paris was like, all right, dude, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they had that interaction where Tom Paris was saying like, I don't agree with your plan, Chakotay. And I think you're like having some problems here. So I'm going to do this thing. And Chakotay is like, no, you're fucking not going to do it. And Tom Paris is like, what are you going to, he said the same thing basically that Janeway said to the doctor, which is like, well, what the fuck are you going to do? Throw me in the brig?
Yeah,
I'm already a prisoner,
I'm beat your ass. Like,
but there's multiple examples of people threatening and even disobeying.
Well,
orders.
I kept trying to, real quick, I kept trying to compare that moment to the moment that the Janeway with the doctor moment. I kept trying to compare it and figure, is there any kind of relation? That's kind of the relationship of that, where one of them's trying to beat the other's ass, and Janeway doesn't say she's going to beat the doctor's ass, but she's like, you have to kill me in order to do it. Whereas Chakotay's like, I'm going to fucking...
I think what we're discussing here is an example of what some people have lamented or in later Star Trek and even going back to, like, people complained about this at Voyager. It's a minor complaint, but that these thematic things don't necessarily hold together as well as they often did in prior Star Trek episodes, where, especially in TOS, where they would fucking hammer a theme. Like, every fucking thing was like about like a specific theme. Not every episode, of course, but that would often be the case.
Well, they hammered a theme here, but it was all about time.
And they often did it well on Voyager as well in other episodes. But in this episode, it's not clear. It's like, okay, is Janeway cool for disobeying orders? Is she not cool? Does that mean Paris should disobey the order because Chakotay is being kind of like too friendly to this genocidal guy?
Being kind of Stockholmy.
Yeah, and being like, he's an enlightened man. On the other hand, Chakotay's not entirely wrong.
Chakotay allowed himself to get flattered by some dude. Like, Chakotay,
like it.
The dude was Annorax was saying, so he was impressed with Chakotay's grasp of the subtleties of time travel. Chakotay just said, well, could you do it in a way where people don't get hurt?
Yeah.
And like, since you can control molecules and people, maybe there's a way you can control a molecule to prevent things from happening by nonviolent means, and it's like, it's not.
I think it's, again, the Star Trek writers, by the time of Voyager, and again, Star Trek had been on nonstop since 1987 at that point, 10 years. I think a lot of what we saw in Voyager was this example of, like, they're writing Star Trek stories, but in terms of the actual, like, kind of attitudes and behaviors of the people, they're kind of going a little bit too far into the rationalistic science zone, because what Chakotay's saying is not implicitly wrong, right?
No, it's not wrong, but it's not.
But his attitude, the way he played it,
well, it just seems like it's. I have a problem with. He basically said something that's like pretty basic,
Yeah.
If you don't swing the sword, can you not kill someone? How about you hit him in the head with the hilt instead? Maybe that won't kill him, but you'll still stop him. It's just like not that deep of a thing to say. It doesn't show any grasp of the subtleties. So it was very obvious that Annorax was just trying to stroke his ego or whatever. But then Chakotay allowed himself to be like played by this dude so easily, I thought.
And the other thing was that came up, I was thinking while watching this.
And Chakotay does give a nod. He's like, I failed, time travel in school. So he's even like, no, I suck at this. But he still fell for the guy. And then later on, Chakotay says, well, let's just get rid of the asteroid. And the guy's like, you killed 1 billion people. And he's like, what?
Yeah, I know, right?
How is that possible? It's like, we've all seen the butterfly effect or whatever. If you haven't, you know what that idea is.
Didn't that come out like after this?
Yeah, it did, but
a few.
Only production. But like, you know, you watch this simple Ashton Kutcher movie, right? This kind
Simple is the
of yeah. But that's what the point I'm getting at. Is it's such like this basic thing of like, you never know what's gonna happen if you do something.
Yeah.
You have the flick of the butterfly wing, and the person on the other side of the earth flies to the moon.
Well, what I was puzzling through this when I was watching it, because Annorax is talking about
It's like Chakotay should have known better, is what I'm saying.
he's talking to Chakotay about how Chakotay seems to have this sort of implicit understanding of time, of the vibe of time. And here's the thing,
Because he's Native American.
yeah, they didn't mention that. And I was going back and forth between being annoyed or very glad that they didn't mention that.
Yeah, right.
All right, so on the very glad side, it's that the whole character was problematic from the first place, not the actor or anything like that. It's just they apparently they hired some guy who said he was an expert on like Native Americans, and it turned out he just made shit up, and they didn't do their double checking. And
I heard something similar happened with the movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh,
this guy Frank Dux just
Dukes made up some shit.
Said he was some kind of ninja like special forces.
Maybe
dude. He just made up a bunch of shit. Yeah.
Maybe this guy goes around Hollywood saying like, I'm an expert on this. But regardless, I can understand. I recall in Voyager that they pulled back somewhat, at least sometimes, from the whole Native American thing, because it was largely a bunch of white writers like trying to write stories for Native Americans. That's inherently problematic, right? On the other hand, there's a good way to do that, which is there are tribal peoples who their philosophy of time is significantly different than the Western, what we consider the Western philosophy, modern Western philosophy on time.
That's for sure.
And they view time in different ways, not just the yearly cycles and centuries, but also the day. The what it means, what time means is processed differently in their culture.
Right.
And
it's usually more like the Aborigines of Australia.
Yeah, well, and there's also the other thing you can play around with there is different means of direction. Like instead of left and right, they have northeast, west, and south, or something. Whatever. You've heard stories like this.
In a lot of places in the U.S., they don't say turn left at this road or right at that road. They say go east on that road and then north on that road, which of course we do for large roads. But
that's like a Midwest thing.
Yeah, because all the shit is flat. You can see like the sun which way it's at, and it's more grid.
It's all a grid.
Yeah, whereas here it's all big curvy curves.
It's like, what do you mean north? I just turned around.
There's a place in Clarendon that I know exactly how to get to it, but I can't explain it.
Oh yeah,
so
no, me neither.
Yeah.
I can't explain how to get to I can't explain how to get down the road there, but I can get you there.
Yeah, right. Anyway, yeah. So, but
the point is that there's a way they could have done it if they had the right people working on it and all that, and it might have actually made it interesting, and they could have done something a little bit more. And I think part of the problem here is that the Annorax character is really interesting in the end, and Kurtwood Smith is a great guy to have. And there are a lot of other actors that would not have been able to pull this off, but Kurtwood Smith was able to get you to empathize with him even before you know his backstory. You can intuit. You can intuit that there's something else going on here, right? And you can still consider the guy a bad guy and the things he's doing wrong. I mean, he's effectively genociding people.
Yeah, but it's interesting. He's gotten that sort of Thanos situation where he is so far disconnected. He's at such a level of abstraction that it's just numbers at this point. He can't bog himself down with the emotion of
or he tries
life.
Not to. Part of what's cool is that when you see his facial expression, I happened to pause at one point, and it was really this emotive facial expression where there's a level of distraughtness every time he fires this weapon, even though he's looking all casual, that he does something with his portrayal where he's not being gleeful about it, right? When he first contacts Janeway, right? And is talking to her and saying like, look, I mean you no harm. Like, you believe him. You sincerely believe that he has no particular interest. He's not a bloodthirsty lunatic. He doesn't give a shit. He has no interest in harming these people. He has an interest in completing his mission, and that might result in erasing these people from existence. But he's respecting them.
I will say though, like so he's a nice guy and all.
It's not exactly what I said.
I wouldn't invite him to dinner. No,
I would go to his dinner, eat up all that fucking extinct shit.
Yeah, what was that
man,
weird
that
shit
food.
they were eating?
There was
It
some
looked
kind
good.
of some kind of chode banana that looked really good.
there was
chode
a
banana.
chode
I didn't see the
banana.
chode banana.
There was actually
Those
three of them in the middle. There
Those
was
funny
three of them.
cones.
That's what I think the chode bananas were.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah, that's
Jones?
right.
Are you
It's like-
jonesing for a chode banana?
I
Yeah,
wanted to bite
I
into
am.
them,
They
and I
look
was
good.
like, "What do those taste like?" If you bite into them, is it going to just be like, "Oh, that wasn't what I was expecting"?
Yeah, it's really weird. And
I wanted to
dry
try
and
that
earthy.
wine he had.
Yeah,
It looked all pink and bubbly.
spirits. I was not aware. I always thought spirits referred to liquor, but I guess they can. I don't know what this.
I think it can be. I think we
a funny-
colloquially, we in our region, in our country, which happens to be the United States of America for the moment. We'll see. Give it a couple years. We'll see. We like to call them spirits if they're liquor.
Hardly knew her. So,
He's a worm child. He's got the brain of a worm child. All this worm is thinking about is his worm.
So when he goes to them and talks to Janeway on when they hail him or whatever for the first time, she's talking about how there's some crazy shit going on. It seems your Imperium never existed, or oh yeah, that's because they saw it like a few weeks ago, and then it came to be. And she's like, "Can you tell us what's going on?" He's like, "That doesn't concern you. What's important is what is important is that you understand that I bear you no hostility." That's not important at all.
Yeah.
Because it's important to him. He's saying that to himself because, but it's like, it's funny. That's completely backwards. And I'm sure it was meant to be that way, but really it doesn't matter if he bears, if he
don't matter.
if he bears them no hostility, he's still going to kill him anyway.
Right.
He's gonna put a foot in their ass.
So it's just kind of like,
He
well,
came
actually,
right up in there and put his Kurtwood Smith foot right up their ass.
what you said didn't concern me is like what concerns me the most. So, he kind of had some issues going, but I guess that's just him trying to battle with his own, sort of.
And apparently he's been chilling on that ship for 200 years and
Oh my God.
not generally speaking, not like negotiating with the people he's about to eliminate. But what I did think it was cool how, because at first I was like, why the fuck is he even bothering talking to these people? Like, why doesn't he just eliminate them? But then they sort of made it clear that he needs more information because in order to factor them into his plans, for whatever reason, he doesn't have like a good beat on them because they're just some like random ass motherfuckers cruising their way through some like lonely ass space that they're not familiar with. So it's kind of like that old gag where you bring the, you play poker with somebody who's never played poker before and they kick everyone's ass because they don't understand it enough to like know when to bet and stuff. I kind of thought that's what Voyager was like. I mean, that's exactly what Voyager was serving as for Annorax plans, just fucking it all up.
Yeah. And, I guess he's looking at the bigger picture and stuff. I guess it was just another way to sort of express to the audience, what's going on. Although I thought it was, I kind of liked, although it's hard to know if they should have gone more into this or not, the whole weirdness he had where time was some kind of creature,
Yeah. Well, again, this is the example of where it's the scenes, mostly the scenes with Kurtwood Smith, that made me want this to be stretched out over a longer period because I wanted to learn more I wanted to become more comfortable with this fellow. And I saw where they were going, where they were trying to set him up as, on the one hand, he's genociding trillions of people. On the other hand, they want you to have some empathy towards him because that's a complex thought. That's a difficult thought. It's really easy to hate, the Hitler or whoever, is like, who's just like portrayed as a raving lunatic. It's much more difficult to hate the person who's like petting their dog and, eating a sausage. Extinct sausage or not. And they were trying to go in that direction with him. But the problem is we don't know him long enough. And Kurtwood Smith does a really good job of conveying those types of emotions. But if it was stretched out over a season, there would have been a lot more time to breathe and let it build. And in fact, maybe we'd get to know him before we know he's the genocidal maniac, for example. There's different ways they could have gone if it was stretched out a little bit more.
I mean, I guess the only clue they really gave that is the very scene at the very end when he just kind of makes the decision that, oh, well, I'm going to go hang out with my wife now.
Yeah. But okay, good question here, right? How did you take that ending, right?
Well, first of all, it reminded me of what you were saying, I think last week, about how now our technology, we do everything on one tablet
Yeah.
or whatever, one phone or one object. And he had these 3 different
Yeah.
like, tablets.
They've
were
almost
all
got like a million
specialized.
tablets.
Right. And it was just kind of sitting around. And then it zoomed in, and I didn't really know if we were supposed to take what it zoomed in on was significant other than the fact that it was his work and he left his work. But it's like showed these screens and it seemed like there was something sinister
Yeah.
there. And I guess it was just implying that was him inventing the time bomb.
Well, yeah, clearly it was implying that, but I did not know how to interpret that if there was indeed supposed to be a bit of, like, okay, initial thought is, oh, he's sitting there, he's working on time device. His wife convinces him to get up and leave, and he does. And so the initial thought is, awesome, this dude's like gonna give up on this time shit. But then then that slow zoom pan into it makes you think, oh, maybe he in fact is going to come back to this later because, like, you know, it's going to rain tomorrow, so he's going to spend all day tomorrow inside.
Yeah, it seemed like it was supposed to be all sinister or something.
I think I got that impression, you know. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to chat about was, again, going back to this thing I briefly mentioned at the beginning about the characterization and sort of the character arcs in this episode. And the problem is we see a lot of challenges, but we don't see the crew truly being challenged, right? So, for example, Tuvok is blinded, but it's not presented as much of a challenge. I mean, yeah, they show him cut himself shaving and being a little bit proud about it, but it, you know, he wasn't going into a depression because of it. He had his tactile, which was cool. That whole, like, you know, activate tactile input. That's cool. Basically Braille or the equivalent. So he got along just well and did his mission. 7 of 9. Everything went well for her the whole time. Garrett Wang seemed to be in good shape, right? Janeway got horribly burned and had some other problems.
Her lungs got burned.
But she largely got fixed up.
Yeah.
And had like a cool scar.
She had a happening 1997 hairdo.
So she ran into fire and fixed the deflectors while she was on fire. That was pretty fucking badass.
Oh yeah, no, Janeway is always badass. I mean,
I'm gonna grab this hunk of metal that's gonna protect me as I go in.
Yeah, she's like,
love her or hate her, and I love her.
Yeah.
Janeway has always been portrayed as really, really badass. And the other cool thing about Janeway is
3rd degree burns, and she's like, oh man, that's oh well.
I'll wear it as a as a badge of. I forget what she said, but anyway, But Janeway, the other cool thing about Janeway is that she is a scientist, right? And like sort of specifically sort of an engineering scientist, as I recall. But she is Voyager is intended to be sort of a scientific vessel, and she's got combat skills and all that stuff. But her main core thing is that she's really fucking good with science, and she's always going back to the pilot. She's able to fix shit for real, you know? Kirk had that a little bit. Cisco, of course, worked at the Utopia Planitia yards and things like, and Picard, Picard didn't get his hands dirty so much in the engine room or whatever, but Janeway by far is the most kind of like tinkery one of the captains. And this episode was cool to highlight that because she was just able to strut around and be like, yeah, I'm going to fix this shit because I know what I'm fucking doing. Right. And she knew.
Did that happen in the pilot, didn't it? Wasn't there? I thought there was a scene or something where she kind of she's unnecessarily tried to like do something instead of the engineers or something like that. But
she just got in there and did it. Now you could be annoyed by that, but which could be fair because I could see that's annoying if your boss comes and starts doing your job. But the point being is that she's not incompetent at it. She's actually pretty good at it. Another example, right? The doctor has that whole situation where he has to close the door on those two people because he needed to close the bulkhead. Right. And if he didn't close the door, it would have resulted in catastrophic damage to further decks of the ship. That's set up to be some dramatic thing that the doctor's going to have to deal with. But apparently he was fine with it because he's talking to somebody about it. I forget if it was Chakotay or whatever.
It was Paris.
Paris, that's right.
Because that's another thing is Paris was all just kind of like, He's like, Paris, come here. We need to help these people. And he's like, but she's in pain. Yeah. And that's another, like, Chakotay with the sort of, you should have known some of these basic things about time or whatever. If we've already established that we're playing by these rules, you should have known that by now. Paris should be very much aware that it doesn't matter if someone's in pain if someone else is dying. I think
precisely.
It's kind of weird, but it was just a mechanism to open up, have the doctor open up and be bitter about something, and then he said something like, "Who will heal the physician?" or whatever, or will the physician heal himself? Or something
well,
like that.
physician heal thyself is an old saying.
Yeah, physician heal thyself, which basically saying
McCoy said that once upon a time.
It was a way to open up so Paris could ask him about that, and the doctor briefly discusses how he shut the door on people. And that's sort of it. It's not like the doctor doesn't spend the rest of the episode being all like mopey or having flashbacks or having like weird hollow dreams about like people burning to death.
Yeah, you don't see that at all.
Yeah, so it seems like they were just presenting ideas to the audience.
Yes,
really.
And again, it's not bad. It just doesn't rise to the level of being as interesting as it could have been, because none of these characters had to actually face any of these. They all seem to handle it really well, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier in the episode, where you could take it different ways. On the one hand, that's great. These are Starfleet officers. These are amazing people, and they are showing that they can get through these crazy hardships, and isn't that awesome? And I totally respect that and accept that. But, and maybe again, like you said, Dan, maybe it's modern eyes, but you kind of want a little bit more, I don't know, some problems that they have to overcome beyond just Tuvok being blind.
And it just, you want more.
Maybe Harry Kim's clarinet gets broken.
Oh no.
And he's all like, my mom's going to kill me.
Oh no. Well, I remember someone...
What am I going to practice on now?
I was reading some review somewhere in the world after Enterprise came out, and I think it was during the first season or after the first season, and the person doing the review is basically saying, I think I get what Enterprise is about. Enterprise, and who knows if whatever, this is just some random reviewer who from some popular website back in the when Enterprise was around. They were basically saying the deal with Enterprise, it's about relationships between people. It's about relationships and things like that. And that's what they're focusing on. And if there's some merit to that, I guess you could kind of say that Star Trek wasn't really that interested at the time, maybe, in having complex emotional interactions like that. But
Deep Space Nine did.
Okay, so right. Deep Space Nine did. I guess the idea.
But they were also the black sheep, and nobody was paying attention to them.
Right. So the idea of you can have emotional interactions between characters, but usually if that's the case, that's the main beat of the story, is that these two people are strifing. It's not usually this sort of like characterization where things get woven over time, where you're like, oh, that character's seeing that character, there's going to be some trouble, that they're going to snip at each other about something, or this character's doing that to them. Oh no. It never built it never built anything. It didn't work towards anything.
Or rarely.
Yeah,
I would say rarely.
Well, I mean, in the instance of Voyager, of this one episode, what you were saying, yeah, like you said, it would have been nice to see that pan out a little bit. But I mean, since it was episodic, I guess this idea of this story is they just kind of had to like span this period of time. And so they gave snippets here and there and presented this idea of just this sort of overview, this sketch of it, and all these ideas and sketches. Also presenting the idea, it's like, hey, did you think about how time travel works like this? It's like, yeah. And they think about, hey, it's real difficult when you have to kill two people to save the whole world. It's like, yeah. And like, there's ways you can present those ideas that are intriguing. But the way they presented in this didn't really offer any intrigue. It's like, yeah, we know that. How are you going to work with us on that? And it's like, you just presented it. And it was kind of this circuitous, self-fulfilling thing, because Paris does the dumb thing. It's like, B'Elanna's in pain. And he's like, this woman's dying.
Exactly.
And this woman's dying. He's like, well, I want to help the person in pain. Okay, I get it. And that's kind of like, okay, here's an idea you presented that you never went anywhere with. And then suddenly it's a reason, though, to split into the other idea that they never went anywhere with, which it leads into the doctor talking about, oh yeah, well, I had to kill two people to save a whole bunch of people. And they just kind of existed for the benefit of each other and nothing else.
Well, consider another show probably over the course of the year would have at least played around with the idea of developing a relationship between two characters, right? Maybe Ensign Kim and Seven, because there was a little bit of a relationship there before, right?
Wait. So okay. You mean during that for that episode?
For the episode, yeah.
So, well, real quick, the Paris and B'Elanna stuff, wasn't it Paris and B'Elanna that eventually got together?
I think they hooked up as I recall, Chakotay and Seven.
Oh, Chakotay and 7? I didn't even remember.
Yeah, that's
that.
like right at the end. It's like some like yeah.
But there did seem to be some kind of thing. There even seemed to thing actually be going on with 7 and Tuvok a little bit. Although she was more the caretaker, they were relating to this stuff. And
the other. This is again another bit of a dropped thread. Was she helping him because she felt guilty because she didn't like leave faster because she was trying to get the from the Chronoton torpedo, was she was getting the phase.
Yeah, I believe it was a Chronoton. I believe it was a Chronoton torpedo.
Chronoton.
It was like an what's it called? Undetonated or something.
Undetonated Chronoton torpedo. You don't see many of those around these parts. But the question is was she feeling guilty and that's why she was helping him? Was she helping him just because she's friends with him, because she gets along with him, because he's all Vulcan-y and she's all Borg-y? I don't know. Not from the context of this episode anyway.
Well, they were doing the Vulcan and Borg comparison thing where they were both, they sort of had their interactions were very dry,
Yeah.
It's like she's not walking around going, my roommate was a mess. She's like, my roommate, she's negligent. She leaves her clothes. And then his response is like, yes, humans are less than meticulous. It's like, oh man, we're less than meticulous. Fuck us, right? But they're both having this kind of
that ensign was leaving her shit like all around the room.
Well, I'm not judging the ensign. Yeah, it's true. Well, it's true. It was more than less than
much less than meticulous.
Yeah, but and then also it's going to say so. When 7 was responding to this Talaxian meal cube water drink that Neelix made because it was a good idea to blend
like ration cubes pureed
so it's like
Talaxian spices.
It's basically like pouring like spaghetti and meatballs with some mashed potatoes in a blender, pouring water.
I think it's worse. I think it's like putting a bouillon cube in some boiled water and then just putting some paprika in there.
Oh man. And
might be good actually.
So her response was like, it's offensive, and she goes,
soup. What am I talking about? I just described soup.
Yeah. Soup.
I just described some delicious soup.
So replace milk with water. So you have a creamy soup. You give a cream soup. Okay, never mind then.
You're making me hungry, Dan.
But her response to that is it was offensive, right? Whatever. Then she goes, fortunately, taste is irrelevant. Of course, that's such a sort of Borg thing to say. But then later on, when she's talking to Tuvok, after she spoke up against the captain, because the captain was like, we should do this, and then 7 of 9 was just like, that's stupid. No, she said that is less than smart or something like that. I can't remember what
she disagreed with the captain.
She disagreed. I could have said that
publicly.
Yeah, publicly disagreed, and then she was basically to Tuvok was telling her, don't do that
to Tuvok,
and he said, and she was like, she's wrong basically, and his response is like, you should know that my trust in Captain Janeway is absolute. The decision you or I might have made is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Within like 2 scenes, she says something's irrelevant, he says something irrelevant, and I counted. That word was used only twice in that episode, and it was one from him and one from her. That would be looking too far into things. But
I was going to say, Dan, what does it mean?
Yeah.
I want to hear this.
I just want to point that out because I'm not
pointing out 2 facts.
I'm just pointing out some facts. I'm not looking too deep into it. I'm just saying, Vulcans.
You're not saying there was somebody on the grassy knoll.
Oh, we can't even get into that.
I mean, you were just saying that there were people there.
There's certain topics that are off limits.
The Kennedy assassination
and space travel.
Space travel.
Time's up. So basically, there's a lot between the Borg and sort of Vulcans that and so they're kind of connecting on that level too.
And I think when you talk about that review about Enterprise, I don't think they're wrong about Enterprise. Enterprise did a very good job with the relationship building, I thought. But I don't think Voyager did a bad job necessarily.
They didn't pay attention to it because it was episodic, and that was kind of the theme at the time.
They were more in line with TNG, where you had things that did build over time, but they really built over time. The introduction of 7 of 9 really helped because she really had a proper arc, right? Mm-hmm. She had a lot of stuff go on, and then her arc extended to Janeway to an extent because Janeway was a big part of that. She did make friends with everybody on the ship in different capacities, particularly Tuvok, and she was hanging out with Ensign Kim for a while, because they had some stuff in common. So they did it on Voyager. If you were watching Deep Space Nine at the time, you would. And I can personally attest to this anecdote. This is anecdotal evidence from my perspective. But you get used to on Deep Space Nine this intricate storytelling, and there's so much character building built into each and every episode. And so many characters. It was a real advantage Deep Space Nine had over TNG, Voyager, Enterprise.
And that's the kind of relationship.
Many characters.
And that's the kind of relationship I'm talking about, though, is kind of you drop little bits here and there to sort of create a bigger picture.
They did that in Voyager, but I think because it was limited, and to be fair, you could say this is a criticism, maybe not as applicable to TNG, but I think it, they did some weird stuff on TNG too. Season 7, they decided Troy and Worf should just be together. For example. On the other hand, other stuff on TNG built very naturally. The relationship between Data and Geordi was something that built very naturally over time.
Well, I mean, maybe this could have been an artifact of that sort of left over from what Ron Moore originally had in mind, which is, you got two of these, terrorists and the establishment.
Well, he wasn't even involved in the creation of this show.
Oh, he wasn't?
No, but he liked the idea.
Okay.
And when Deep Space Nine wrapped up, he wanted to go work on it.
Okay, well, that idea in general is that you've got, from the start, the premise is all about relationships. We know they ditched the premise, but the premise from the start is about relationship. You got these two people that hate each other. How are they going to work together? And so the whole theme to start off with, there's a big portion of how do people interact with each other?
Yes.
How do you interact with someone you hate versus someone you care about? Do you do the favor for the person you care about or the one you hate is smarter? You know what I'm saying? Like all these sorts of questions. Now I'm kind of grasping at straws here, but I was just thinking like maybe Voyager was attempting to go for some kind of relationship thing, but because they're limited to this sort of episodic format, they can only sort of half-ass it, and then it kind of comes off as a little janky. I don't know if that's.
I think that's a fair assessment, and I gotta say, you reminded me that I was somewhat annoyed by the Doctor's speech, and not in the way you're supposed to be, because and I love the Doctor, and I love that he can be obnoxious like this, when he's giving the speech for the opening of the astrometrics lab and all that, and they're all getting excited. Because then he goes into this speech about how, to think just a few years ago, you were Maquis and Starfleet, and you couldn't stand each other. And now look at us, we're all working together and accomplishing all this stuff. And I was like, no, they liked each other by the end of the first episode. And that's the problem. That's the unfortunate thing that decision was made that locked them into this more problematic thing where Voyager definitely had more drama between characters than TNG did on average, particularly after 7 of 9 came on board. They really were able to shake things up with that, but it was mostly people getting along and getting in adventures.
Yeah, that speech was like one of those instances where they were trying to tell you how to feel instead of expressing it through the story. It's like,
which is aggravating.
And it's like, we know what happened. We know what the situation. We know you told us that it was supposed to be this way, but you didn't show it that they were pissed off at each other. We just saw it from the first half of the episode. It's also kind of an annoying speech because I think it was like overly predictable, but that could have just been a time of, I mean, I know the idea it was supposed to be like that, but it was kind of corny. I know it was meant to be corny. I know it was meant they were going for something very specific. Seemed a little overboard.
But let's pull back, because we've been doing a lot of nitpicking, but let's pull back and think about the story overall, which is fundamentally, it's a kind of an awesome idea that we hadn't really seen something very equivalent to, which it's a unique story, even though it's time travel, because it's this idea, that this guy is working for his people to bring his people through prominence by erasing people from time. That concept is interesting. And forget about erasing the people, just the idea of manipulating the past to result in the future you want. But it's really still the present. You're not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's still like he's seeking a specific present, not even a future.
Well, there was these chronoton waves or whatever when they hit something. For example, they hit that planet and turned it all back in time, and it shot out a wave. And I don't know, I guess he had control. I don't know what kind of radius he was trying to determine for those, like how much of what got affected.
Well, my understanding is the idea is what that's doing is it's affecting something in the past, and then what they're looking at is what it looks like now. And so now there's no people there.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah,
so,
right.
So, and that wave is the effect of time fixing itself, maybe for infinity, from that point outward.
No, yeah, I totally get that part. I think I was just kind of wondering more along specifics of how that it's like when he shoots something, does he say like, okay, this explosion's gonna the radius is gonna be this many light years and it's gonna affect this bubble, and then everything outside of this bubble will be unaffected by time, but he can control every aspect too. So can one explosion control? I guess it's kind of weird to think about how much he's trying to. They do take a lot of calculations, but how much he's trying to control. It's not simply like this planet's going back in time to the year 1500 or whatever.
Yeah.
It is for that planet, but then does that mean everything else in space that it touches goes back to? It's kind of like a weird. What is this affecting?
If this was stretched out to a season, then what he would be doing would be something that makes more sense, which is which combination of planets. Right? So in this episode, it was more presented like, I kill these people and this happens. Then I kill these people and then this happens. When really what the calculation should be is, all right, we've got to eliminate these people, but we got to save these people. In fact, we got to help these people. Like, it should have been more complicated, right? It should have been that in some cases, he's actually elevating people to power because it benefits his people versus, and the idea also that, what we miss out on is what's happening in between. What are the rises and falls of empires and things like that? Because what if the Imperium is strong now, but there's other stuff different about the Imperium because even though it has its territory, maybe it's full of a bunch of lunatics or something because of something that happened in the past, They hint at it with that disease they're talking about, that disease that they didn't get the antibody
they
to.
didn't get the antibody for the disease.
It's the crux of the episode. But it would have been interesting to see that examined in a more complex way. Again, they're totally limited by this, and so I'm trying not to nitpick because I really do think it's a really clever story idea. Both the basic premise that he's trying to help his people be strong, and then the sub premise, the secret twisty twist that's not much of a twist, but it's still powerful. The idea that he's actually full of shit. He just wants to bring back his fucking wife and daughter, or whatever. He didn't really his wife, right?
Yeah. So I'm trying because the season would have explained better in my head too. The sort of the time, the order, chronology, going forward through time.
I get it. Temporal incursion coming through. Let's start a heavy metal band called Temporal Incursion.
So he's a Kerman or a Kermit or what's their race, their space? I forget what they're called. They're Kenlins or Curlins or Snurlins. Are they Snurlins?
Snurlins.
We're from the Snurlin Imperium.
I don't remember what they're called, but
Krenum. They're called the Krenum. The Krenum Imperium.
So
buttons.
They are having a war with the Zahn or whatever, the Steve Zahn.
Yeah, I was thinking Steve Zahn.
Yeah. So, and I guess, why did he do it originally? He originally did it because he wanted to defeat the Rygosians or something, or was it the Zahns?
Yeah, so what happened was...
I'm trying to remember which races... I'm basically trying to remember which races played parts in
the Krenum Imperium, at least as we see at the beginning, and we don't know how long... Well, we know he's been working for 200 years, so that's the other thing that doesn't go very examined is that... even though it's implied, the writers don't ignore this fact, but we don't see all the manipulations beforehand, right? Voyager comes in and he's already been manipulating time from his perspective 200 years, right? So whatever Voyager's meeting is not the way time is supposed to be either, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's already fucked up at that point. Now, what's cool is at the end of the episode, they recognize that because when the ship explodes, when they meet the Krenum dude, and he's in like not a tiny ass ship, but it's also not like a mega huge ship, and his attitude's totally different than the two other times you see him. Because the first time you see him, he's kind of like a petulant, like Trump, like I'm strong, fuck you, I'm strong, and then the other time he's actually like, fuck you, I'm strong. In the last scene, he's more like a normal military officer.
That guy's a perfectly reasonable fellow.
Yeah. So in the original they greet the Voyager by the Krenum greets Voyager by firing on him. That's the first thing they do.
Zap, zap. Ooh, I've got little laser beams.
Yeah.
And so Janeway answers and says, "Have we offended you?" And he's like, "You leave reverse course immediately. This region is in dispute. You have no business in here." And she was just like, I thought we were doing this. And he was like, the Zol have no claim here. They have what's ours. Reverse your course so we get destroyed. And then she's basically like, well, fuck you. I dare you. Right. That's how the first one ended. The second one was the vessel approached and he hailed them instead of firing directly on them. And so she opened a channel and he says, you've entered Krenim space, state your identity. She states her identity. And he says the same thing. This region's in dispute. And he says, I just suggest you avoid our territory.
Be careful.
Just be careful. And she's like, thanks for the warning. So the first one, he was all on the offense. And she kind of responded like, well, I dare you. And then the second one.
Time's up.
And the second one, he was basically saying like, okay, just avoid this area. So in the first one, I guess the idea is that there's not many of these guys left. There's no central force, and they're just kind of wandering.
And the
Zal even says that. He even says they're just wandering around. And in the new one, however, time got reversed because they don't really say, but I guess what's implied is that they don't really say what the state of the universe is for them at that point, but I guess they have a central force. Now, how does
something going on?
But how does the Zal play into that, So it's hard to say,
But presumably everybody is brought back to life, That's the implication.
Did Kurtwood Alien, did he like get his wish in the end too? I guess he did. He did. Because it showed him the scene with the wife.
Got to hang out with his fucking hot ass, tall ass wife.
Fixed.
Yeah. So and
his wife was all like, "It's a beautiful day.
So
come spend it with me."
He's like, "Yeah."
And he's like, "I'm not a dumbass. I'm gonna fucking go hang out with this beautiful woman."
Yeah, so
sit upon the grass.
So I guess this all started because
Kurtwood Smith is the guy that calls everybody else dumbass.
That's right.
So it started as the Krenim, they dominated the space, and so Zal took over, and then that's why he's trying to get shit back in order.
Yes.
But like you said, the time's fucked up anyways because
we don't know. Yeah, we don't know the deal.
And they get hit with that thing, right? They get hit with that time thing. It's funny, they get ready reverse time. They don't remember how they got there. It's kind of the time goes back a second because initially they talked to the Krenim, right? They were like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And they're like, "You gotta get out of here." And then when they get hit with the zap with the time wave. She goes, they won't answer our hails.
Yes.
He hails them and she's like, finally, they've just been firing on us. So it reversed time at that point too. When it phased, it reversed time for them.
Well, and you just reminded me that I do think we have a hint as to what originally happened because when he's talking to Chakotay about his wife, getting that disease because of what he did, right? And basically that colony being wiped out. He speaks about a specific enemy and it was a different alien race. And I can't remember it right now. I think it might have started with a B. I can't remember, but he was saying that they were our greatest enemy. So presumably the Zal were never even an enemy in that, whatever the real timeline is, whatever. It was these other people. And in defeating those other people is what caused the problem with the colony and 50 million people dying.
Right, so it wasn't even them really. So
exactly. So the Zal, it's very confusing.
I think it's the Ramazad or something. There was something about they had to kill the Ramazad.
I saw a picture on the Facebook today, and somebody said it was the Ram Hanks. Somebody had taken a picture of Ram and put Tom Hanks's face on it. It was really disturbing.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
That's really a side note.
Looks
this is today's It's Got Star Trek Google tip.
So
the Google tip.
Actually,
search for Ram Hanks.
So
Google image search.
When Chakotay and Kurtwood agreed to do the thing, and Kurtwood went back on it, he goes, "When time offers you an opportunity, you don't ignore it." It's like it's the perfect time to change time when we're time for all time. Like
I don't have time for this.
And so that's when he decides overnight that he's going to start killing again. And that's when he kills the Ramazad, and that gives him a 52% chance, even though they had a 98% chance before. Killing it somehow put it all back in perfect order. I don't know. At the very end, but I'm trying to remember what. I don't know if they mentioned what species it was.
They mentioned it. He said, "Our great." I think they mentioned the name, but who cares? It's a fucking made up Star Trek name, and we never hear it again because we never even saw them. They were just referenced. We don't need to know that. That's what the Star Trek wiki is for.
Well, actually, so I have this script that I was looking at, and it asks a question.
Wait, is this the script to this episode?
Yeah. It was just some website.
You got one of them websites. It's like he's going on. It's like Dan's going on the dark net getting Voyager scripts.
It's like chakotaya.net or something.
Wait, is it really?
It's CHAKOTEYA.net. I don't know what the deal with that is.
Is that a Chakotay fan or /fic site?
I don't know. I'm only
Rule
looking
34 site for Chakotay. Is there a subreddit specifically like Chakotay Rule 34 Chakotay?
So this scene that he's
I bet you there's a Rule 34 Neelix.
Chakotay busted my ass.
So in that scene, so in that scene, basically Chakotay and Janeway are talking about, are we going to abandon ship? Like Chakotay's like, we should abandon ship. And she's like, no, we're not going to do that. He's like, I'm glad you said that. And I just had to ask or whatever. And so at the script, this person wrote, can I ask a question here? What happened to the report on the Krenem's weaponry that Kess compiled after the events of Before and After? I can't speak to that, but you were saying about races we'll never hear again. But according to this person, there was a race of the Krenem, and the Krenem, they have a report on them in the episode Before and After. Do you remember, Patrick, what episode was Before and After?
I do not, because I didn't look it up.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's something.
But he says Kess, right? So that we could infer from that this script was written prior to season 4, when because Kess was still around, but now she's not around. They got rid of her. For all sorts of crazy reasons, apparently you can read about on the internet.
Craziness.
Also, what I don't know if this changed exactly, but it seemed inconsistent. Maybe I'm just don't have all the info. The original reason they went through that space was because that Harry and Seven worked together to create some kind of like super map, right? And they were able to plot a course through the map that saved them. Was it 5 years?
Yeah, they said it would save you 5 years.
Yeah, and so at the very end, it was saying something like they were dodging a meteorite or something to get into the. That's the reason they took
a comet. The comet that Chakotay wanted to get rid of. Yeah,
so which is it? Yeah, Chakotay wanted to get rid of the comet.
I hadn't caught that. I think that does seem like it's an inconsistency.
Right, because maybe did they dodge a comet at one point that put them in the position they are now, where they have to suddenly decide to go through this space to save time? How much of like course do you have to change to dodge a comet? So
well, and I wanted to go back real quick to at the beginning of the episode when the Krenem ship, the kind of tiny shitty one, fires on Voyager. And there's no damage, and Tuvok explains that this is a crappy little, like, dumb, stupid loser ship. And then Janeway's
they said, like, it was all it needed was a photon grenade to destroy it. That doesn't fulfill the qualities of a secure system. Secure system needs to have confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
What are you talking about?
That's the 3 principles of security.
Like computer security?
It probably applies to things all over the board.
What do you mean? Like he shouldn't be saying that shit out loud?
No, what I'm saying is the way the system is built.
What system? What are you talking about?
The 3 security goals: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So you were talking about how the ship doesn't have good shields. The little
ship. The hookah ship. No, I was talking about the little Krenem ship at the beginning, because I was just going to make the point. We'll get back to your point, but I was just going to make the point that I wanted to ask what you guys thought about the idea that Janeway, once she determined that this ship was no threat, Janeway was basically like, "Yeah, fuck you. We're going to just go through your space."
Yeah,
is that like a Starfleet thing to do?
I thought she was being a little aggressive.
It seems a little iffy as far as what we know.
I mean, it fits in with Janeway because she's aggressively trying to get people home. I'm not saying she's even wrong, but it did seem a little out of the, I could see Captain Kirk being like, well, no problem. We'll go this way.
That's not a Picard thing to do.
Yeah, I don't think Picard would do it either.
And she even responds with the line, she goes, with all due respect, unless you've got something a little bigger in your torpedo tubes, I'm not turning around. It's just kind of like she's being kind of...
She said the guy had a tiny fucking cock, is what she said.
Basically.
She said this guy has a tiny dick.
So the ship grew, right, when it got hit with, speaking of that subject.
Are we going to get into this aspect of the show?
The ship grew when the time thing went through it, and then when it went through it again later, it shrunk again.
In my cargo bay.
But so no, when I was talking about the space when the space hookah was flying through the sky, and Paris was saying if you take down its time shields, you can like destroy it with its, because it's normal shields, its real person shields suck butt. So, and he was saying you could use it as a photon grenade or something like that. And so there's the problem. This could be a stretch, but I'd say, first of all, it failed confidentiality because the Ubris, the Keanu Derek Zoolander guy, like that guy was like,
you mean the second in command guy?
Yeah. Ubert. Yeah.
I'm Ubert.
He was saying he told him that, so it broke confidentiality, but that's not a fault of the ship system. That's just their general system. That's
a fault of the commander has been making these people do this boring ass shit for 200 years.
It's an inside job, which is actually one of the biggest ways that security gets breached in places. But it also failed it also failed availability.
Did you recently take a test on this? has or something?
years ago. But
Years ago.
it fails availability.
You have good recall.
because
People hire this man.
availability, why the internet works is availability works because when something goes down, you want it to still work through like redundancies and things like that. So you've got this thing that's easy to take down. It's like some random person that knows how to get into the ship can just go doot. Separation of duties. All right. No one person should be able to take out a ship. Separation of
I
duties.
agree with you there.
And so there's that. But then
This guy was a time scientist,
So
not a proper executive
I'm a
officer.
time scientist. So he took down the thing, right? And so they have poor availability. Their shields for their normal system suck doo-doo. And so they should have had at least some shields.
Literally.
They should have had at least a backup plan. Why have shields at all if a photon grenade or whatever
Well-
can be? But they apparently had good enough weapons to blow up, like, to melt all these ships.
They had chronoton torpedoes.
When they got taken down, though, I think they just had their normal weapons at the end.
Oh, word.
They
Yeah,
had the-
he said it switched to conventional weapons
that's
or whatever.
right.
yeah.
But if they used to be an imperial race, you could see why they might have good weapons technology. And you
Well,
know,
they should have good shield technology,
yeah,
too.
I agree. But also, you could also from the if you're going to be in the in-universe perspective, this guy, like I
be
just
an
said,
in utero
this
perspective.
guy appears to be he's a time scientist, and that seemed to be his focus. And he's obsessed. He has an obsession. He's running his crew into the ground. You know, they're openly disagreeing with him, but he's not recognizing that might be a threat, and he might have to mollify them in some way. So that creates the opportunity where for Tom Paris to get in good with his first officer or whatever equivalent, So he's not focused on things like that. It's the arrogance and obsession clouds his mind to the things that his ship needs. He's like, I'm making a fucking time ship and I'm going to genocide trillions of fucking people. I don't need very good shields, right? I've got to use all that power to put it to the fucking time.
And I'm just
ship.
saying he failed he failed the principles of
He
it.
did. But in the end, he got what he needed. Janeway helped him out by killing him and herself.
So maybe he did exactly what he was supposed to have done. Maybe he did exactly what he was supposed
It
to have
could
done.
be that he did exactly.
It doesn't matter if somebody else resets the timeline. It doesn't matter what the fuck you do.
Yeah. It's like that thing in Men in Black where he doesn't remember anymore, but then he's back to normal, but then Will Smith brings him back again.
Yeah.
3 Nihydron warships and 2 Mawasi cruisers and Voyager. That's who fought him out. And those ships' fucking weapons took those fuckers out.
And again,
Only 2 Mawasis. Like, why couldn't you have had like 4 Mawasis?
I don't know. I've been wondering that
on
too.
a season-long arc, you have a couple episodes of them actually going around and gathering these allies.
So I think
Absolutely.
So I think
they just showed up.
I think that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, they just made
Like-
friends with these.
Like day 236.
You don't even get to hear them talk. They're just, oh, here's some ships. No, and I agree. So I think this is part of the problem because what I was expecting from these episodes was I liked the idea of having this long period of time, super shitty, in like condensed into like an episode. I like that idea because it's kind of like, wow, you're getting a really overhead view of all this shit that they have to go through. It's like a real bummer and that sucks, and you just live with their depression. But it didn't like connect with me in that way that I thought it would. And I think it's because the way it was set up, it would have been better as a season. I think if it was done differently, and I don't know how differently that would have been, maybe if like there was some more permanent effects.
All the
If they
unrest with the crew on that other ship and the gathering of the allies, and there could have been all sorts of stuff that they could have sort of taken their time with.
Yeah, they could have, exactly, and they could have taken that. And so I think that's why it just left me wishing it was more of a season, whereas originally I thought, okay, you're just going to see them go through some shit and they're going to be a little fucked up afterwards, but they'll keep on trucking. Even if it's just emotional damage they take, they'll just keep on, because they had the episode where Chakotay and Janeway lived on that planet together, and they basically, were married for a little while, right? And they were on that planet for like a year or something.
Well, there's the one where she and Tom Paris turn into salamanders and fuck and make salamander babies.
Oh, I was talking about the one where she was on like the planet.
Turned
with-
into
I know.
salamanders.
I just like bringing up that episode.
Yeah, that was.
It's weird, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah. So anyway, the point being is
Are
those.
they actual salamanders, or are they like salamander/people?
No, they're like giant salamanders all writhing on top of each other. I mean, I haven't seen that episode in a long time, so my memory may have been adjusted to become more sexy than it was on the show. But so
So wait, I think it's called Is it called Resolution? Yeah, it's affected with a deadly virus. Captain Janeway and Chakotay depart the ship for a small planet to prevent infecting the crew. And so it's called Resolutions. I think the idea is they live together for a while. All this shit happens. It's implied that they, pretty much, lived a married life and with all its romantical behaviors.
Along with all the marital duties.
And,
Yes.
Resolutions. With all the resolutions.
And so, no, the point is that they were able to do something like that, have a long period of time. This thing, the idea when shows pass over a long period of time, like when the Orville.
The Orville, they did the thing with the time, it goes fast, which is actually very similar to a Voyager episode.
Yeah, that was the Orville one where they were on the planet and the robot.
Time goes fast on the planet.
Well, for them it goes fast, but like that robot
like that
dude,
Red Dwarf episode.
No, the robot on the Orville, he had to live on that planet for 600 years or something like that. Yeah. So that idea of
700
of a ton of time passing in the span of an episode, and some different shit came of it, and you're thinking, what happened? And it's like, well, you don't really know because that's not the point. In this episode, you kind of wonder what's happening because they introduce all these sort of tertiary ideas that it's like, I want to learn more about what happened.
I think they could have been, one way they could have focused the story a little bit is to eliminate some of the things that we discussed, or at least treat them differently in terms of these sort of opening these little conversations that they then do not resolve, right? So we talked about the doctor having to close the door on those people, Tuvok being blind, even Chakotay's arc, which is a little bit more well developed, but his interest, his whole time thing, and his interest in hearing this guy out as a strategy for trying to resolve the problem. They could have maybe either pulled back on some of that, or on the other hand, taken it further. Like, why have Tuvok go blind? Why not just kill him? Like, it's going to be reset at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So, have more stakes, have more, even more damage, as opposed to the somewhat cliched, these happen to be the characters we like and follow each week, and they happen to be the characters that we are continuing to follow even when everyone else is either dead or shot off in an escape pod, etc. So, I think that's what kind of it inserts a little bit of artificiality in it, which is always going to be in a TV show and certainly in shows like Star Trek, and you have to suspend disbelief. And so again, this is a very minor complaint, but it's those little rough edges that could have been smoothed out a little bit better and really increase the impact of the overall message. Both, again, this great sci-fi idea of is it genocide if people didn't exist? That's one whole debate right there that they didn't get to really delve deeply into.
Obrist actually brought that up. He was talking about, celebrating birthdays of family members, and he's like, family members of people who are dead or just don't exist anymore. And that idea of somebody living and dying versus them never having lived, it's somehow more depressing that they haven't lived instead.
Or is it?
I mean,
that's a question. The point is that's a great debate, and it's something they did not really
threw it out there.
Yeah,
it's like you heard that guy talking about it once.
And then
they could have cut down maybe on some of like the broad strokes of general sort of ideas throwing out there, because just throwing the idea out there isn't, it doesn't give you any revelations about anything. You don't really learn anything. Yeah. It's like, yes, we're aware that this is an idea that has been established, and we know that people ask these questions. Instead of just presenting a million questions, present less and then dig deeper into them.
Birthdays for the dead or for people who never even exist.
Yeah, man.
And then then a completely other...
That's fucked up, man.
That's how it goes.
A related but completely separate debate is the idea of the justification of either saving or improving the lot of your people by manipulating time. And while it might be easy to come down on say like, oh, of course it's wrong, the reason why it could be interesting because is how is that effectively any different than having atomic weapons or large militaries or utilizing your economic and political power to manipulate other countries into ways that improve your lot, right? How is that different? In fact, Annorax would probably argue it's much cleaner because these people never even exist, so fuck it. No one's being hurt because there's no one around to be hurt, right? So that's another debate that, again, it's implicit in the episode. It comes up here and there, but they weren't really able to pull on enough of those threads, and it's so intriguing And I think that can raise the level of aggravation a little bit because it's like, you're almost there. What, let's talk about this instead of this other,
They could have
thing.
a whole episode about Chakotay trying to take away that meteor, and it's like he takes it away. He's like, oh, all these people died, but then they could talk about, well, all these other civilizations
are alive now
and grew up because of that, which is better,
Yes.
and so you could just sort of go through all these scenarios and really, have you think and ponder the idea instead of just,
It's a lot of heavy shit that they tried to like just throw into like a two-parter. And
Yeah.
it's just like there's this and there's this and there's this.
They should have been a little more just general and picked a theme. Because the theme should have been about loss more. It wasn't about loss. It was about loss in the sense that he lost his wife and all that stuff, but it really wasn't. You didn't get to feel the loss of the characters during the episode at all. Like you were saying with Tuvok, for example, you didn't feel the loss of his vision. You didn't feel, I don't know, he survived a fireball blast to the face, but whatever.
This episode should have been at the end of the first season, and then like the rest of the show would have been like dealing with the aftermath.
That would have been cool. Yeah. Or if they knew they were going to end it soon or something, like, I don't know. That would have been awesome, but it's tricky then because then you paint yourself in a corner, so you want to try to pace yourself.
Well, they
right?
did so many things that they could have.
But that would have been cool.
So, for example, at
like
the
if
beginning,
they went for it.
They're like, how many torpedoes do we have left? 11. Yeah, okay, cool. That's a cool thing to know. That's a cool thing to know
Right.
that your number, and then later in the episode it's 6. You're like the numbers are going down.
They only fired 4. When they did the torpedo mines, they only dropped 4 of them off. So somewhere there was an extra
there was
torpedo.
an extra torpedo in the intervening
somewhere.
time.
Call the quartermaster.
Damn those torpedoes.
Damn
Jesus fucking Christ. That's upsetting on a Friday night. Dark times, man. Dark times are affecting us all in strange ways. But Star Trek gets us through the day.
This is my warm voice.
My warm voice with my pistachios.
Yeah, pistachios.
Wax dental floss.
All right, so let's wrap it up. Any last thoughts on the episode before we close down the podcast?
We're gonna wrap it up.
Wrap it up like a present around Christmas or on any given birthday.
On
if people
any
still
given
do that.
birthday. Do you remember that Jamie Foxx on Any Given Sunday? He sang that song. He's like, Any Given Sunday.
I
Something
know.
like that. It was with Al Pacino. There was an eyeball and stuff. It was crazy.
Eyeball.
I choose not to remember that.
So, okay. I want to ask you.
Okay.
I'll ask you a quiz question.
All right.
A quiz question.
Quiz.
I'm going to list some words.
Okay.
First, tell me which one was used the most.
Okay.
Then tell
Irrelevant.
Tell me which one
Was used twice.
was used the least. All right. We have
Okay.
incursion.
Okay. Temporal incursion. That was used a fucking lot.
So I'm just going to list these words.
Okay. Which one was? Is it going to be pairs of words, and we have to decide which one was used more?
I'm
Are
going
you
to
gonna have us like a list of 10 words?
Jesse and I are super keen on understanding the sort of rules and structure to this game.
So I'm going to list some words, and first you have to decide which one they used the most in this episode out of all those words.
All right.
We have,
Incursion.
and actually you're going to have to pick which one they used the least.
Okay. Both the most and the least.
Right. So I'm going to list
then
these words.
that will feed into a secondary puzzle of some sort.
It's just a question. It's just a way to like give you information in a fun sort of silly.
I'm digging it. I'm smiling. I'm digging it. I'm smiling. I can't wait.
Giving you a reason.
I'm kind of
to
interested
hang
in this
on.
whole list. We know the first word in the list. I'm pretty confident is
I'm
incursion.
on the edge of my seat.
So cool. So
Usually so insincere.
so we have incursion.
Okay.
Jeffrey's tube.
All right.
Astrometric.
Mm-hmm.
History.
Oh.
Space-time.
Spaceballs.
Continuum.
Oh no.
Chronoton.
Uh-oh.
Future. Temporal. Space. Time. Space-time.
You already said that one.
No, he's a space and time and then space-time, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I thought he said that before in the list.
He might have.
And tachyon.
They didn't say Jeffrey's tube that much.
And tachyon was the last one.
I think...
I don't recall it.
So
I think they
I can
said-
cut down the list if you want.
No.
You want me to say
No.
it again?
No.
I can say
We
it
remember
again.
all the words.
Okay.
I think they said temporal the most because they said incursion a lot, but they usually said like temporal incursion, and then they said temporal like at other times for other reasons, right? That's my guess. And then for the least one,
Jeffrey's tube.
So we know. Jesse's going to say Jeffrey's tube, but I want to say tachyon. I think I'm going to throw out a thing because you'd expect it because tachyons are time particles.
Yeah.
They can go backwards in time.
I don't recall hearing much tachyon talk.
I don't have a regular. I'm going to play it wild. I'm going to fucking toss it out there. Since Las Vegas is closed for business, we'll have to bring it right here.
Right here.
All right. So Jesse, what do you think was said most? Because he still hasn't guessed what's most. We're going to have independent guesses.
I can repeat the words again.
Yes.
Incursion.
Astrometric. Jeffrey's tube. Chronoton. Space-time. Space. Time. History.
I'll go with time.
Future.
I'll go with time.
Tachyon. Temporal. What'd you go with?
Time.
So you say time, Jesse. That's Jesse who just spoke. I'm Dan. Patrick over there. You see that guy over there?
Hey there.
Patrick said temporal.
They see no one anywhere.
Patrick said temporal. Jesse said time.
Or having to do with time.
Patrick said least. He said tachyon. What did you say for least, Jesse?
Jeffrey's tube, I believe. Yeah. Just for Jeffrey's tube. Yes. Yes.
You want me to tell you which ones it is? You want me to?
Tell us next week.
What is
At the end of the next podcast, give us the answers.
Dan is engineering. He's taking control of the podcast. He's manipulating all of us.
Do you want me to tell you? It's like I'm not even not telling him.
It's like, we'll find out next week. Tune in next week.
Do you guys
to find out
care
the
what the
woods?
answers are?
Okay, I can either tell you the winner or loser, or I can just list them off with their numbers next to them.
That sounds like a better.
Can you list them off with their numbers next to them, but in reverse order?
Okay.
Reverse order, least to highest.
How about the middle to the highest and then middle to the least?
No, because if you were going to start from the middle, you'd have to go middle and then to the lower, then to the higher, then to the lower, then to the higher. You'd have to do a more equal, a more egalitarian algorithm.
It's a little weird though.
Let's start a heavy metal band called the Egalitarian Algorithm.
I'm just gonna read them in whatever order I feel like. So incursion, the word incursion had 12.
12.
10 singular, 2 plural. But it's all
Jesus Christ.
So I'm just gonna put it as 12.
You count those as the same, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
How many times do you watch these episodes before we do the podcast?
I just do a lot of rewinding and writing notes.
Good Lord.
Every single time I'm like, when I'm listening to these podcasts and editing them, it's always I always know I'm about a half hour out from the end of the episode when I hear myself say, "All right, let's wrap."
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm trying to go forward, but you guys are the ones that keep interrupting me. So
To the future.
You're all forward momentum.
Well, see, this is what I'm talking about. It adds up.
Rock rolling downhill.
Do you remember what I was saying?
Weirdly, still covered in moss.
You remember what I was saying before, where I try to get a point across, and then I have to play a reality show with it by telling you what happened leading up to what I just said a minute ago?
Is this like the running gag on the show as you explain that we don't let you finish your sentences?
Well, I mean, it's fine. I think it's fun and all and great. I don't mind at all. But
somebody even commented on it.
Yeah,
you're like, I think it's fine. I don't care at all.
Right, but if you do that and then go turn around and criticize me for taking too much time, then we're gonna have to have a discussion.
I never criticize you.
No, it's just me. Patrick Potshots. That's what they call me. That's my nickname, Patrick Potshots. Taking potshots at Dan.
So incursion is 12. History is 16.
Ooh.
Wow.
Space is 31.
Fucking A.
Astrometric is 8. Space-time is 8. Chronoton is 5. Temporal is 47.
Whoa! No!
Future is 3. Tachyon is 0.
All right.
Zap, zap.
And
what about time?
85.
Oh, I win.
Time wins. I kind of figured time would win. But I got the tachyon. So we each got a point.
Yeah, you each got a point.
We each got a point.
It's a fight to the death.
That was a good game, Dan.
Thanks, guys. Do you want me to real quick?
I'm so nervous about what comes next.
I know, and this is kind of. I understand if I'm getting into dictatorial.
No. It's great. I love it. I really do. I'm legitimately anxious.
So, no, this is just very innocent. This is just.
That's me. Oh my god.
This is going over the days and just some of the shit they had to go through. So, So I guess at the beginning, the first thing they went through, I didn't mark the day for this one, it looks like, but there was 15 wounded. The main power went down. They lost environmental controls on decks 7 and 8. The computer was offline. Then sections 10 through 53 on deck 5 were gone. 12 wounded, many critically.
Like deck 5 got totally kablooey.
Yeah. 2 killed. The doctor killed those 2.
He fucking murdered
The
them.
doctor.
And they lost 4 out of 11 torpedoes, but that's because they were using them properly. So, but it's still, they don't have those torpedoes anymore. Then on day 47, 7 of 9 said, during the last attack, 19 main power relays were severed. The entire turbolift system is non-operational. They lost the turbolift system. I don't know if these damages lasted, but I'm guessing they did because they kept getting fucking attacked all the time.
Do they have to like use ladders when the turbo lifts?
I don't know what they.
Jesus,
I don't know. I don't
Gotta
even
use them
know.
Jeffries tubes
Maybe
and them
transporters.
ladders.
How many fucking decks do they have?
A million.
It's a smaller
You gotta
ship.
climb up a ladder.
At least it's not a Galaxy class, so they don't have to be ambling.
Or a Borg cube.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Borg cube is big, man.
So yeah, B'Elanna actually, and this is a part that talks about, goes with the theme of the time of the episodes, but B'Elanna wanted to go to the Jeffries.
B'Elanna.
She wanted to go to the Jeffries tube network on deck 11 because the EPS manifold must have taken a hit as well. But she was fucked up. And so they were like, don't worry, 7 of 9's going to do that. It was like one of those instances where it's like a throwaway, like, oh, okay, no big deal. Seemingly, harmless action turns out to be a big fucking deal. Because what happened? 7 of 9 found the fucking shield things. Who knows if B'Elanna would have done it? We don't know. And she got a fireball to Tuvok's face, who didn't die from a fireball to his face, but he did go blind. Would that have happened if B'Elanna was able to go?
Why was Tuvok shaving with a straight razor?
I don't know, because
Do you think
That's
that
what Klingons do.
so he could cut himself.
Do you think that he started shaving with a straight razor only after he went blind?
Right. He's like, listen, guys.
He's just sort of bored.
Yeah, and I'm guessing they did this on purpose, but he was looking in the mirror. Obviously, he couldn't look in the mirror, but like, were they just trying to display habits? I guess it was kind of. But yeah, I know the straight razor thing made less.
They were doing that trivia
narrative
game, Harry and the Klingon. Shit.
Harry and the Klingons.
They were
Harry and the
they were doing that trivia game, and it was about Zephyr Cochrane's ship, and they couldn't guess it, and then 7 of 9 knew it, and she was like, well, the Borg were present at that.
First contact.
And Natalie was like, why can't we see an episode about that? And I was like, there was a movie.
There's a whole fucking movie.
And she was like, oh.
So the only thing interesting about that, the only thing that we'd never heard of is like everything was, of course, back into related to Earth things that we know about, right? Except for one thing, the Klingon who played Parisi Squares and strangled the referee or whatever.
Right.
And it's interesting because whenever you give a list, and when you're in the future and you have to give a list of things in the past, you want to make it relatable to the audience, but you also got to get in those couple ones from the future. So
You
it seems
gotta
like
throw in the
so it seems like you're not pandering or something.
Future baseball or
But-
the Klingon,
But they got
whatever the fuck.
they got 2 in one shot because they got a future time and a future alien too.
Yeah,
So-
I was like, when they're like, it's like Newton or Einstein or Surak.
yeah, right, yeah.
Or
Right.
Deep Space Nine when they get into the baseball and there's some kind of future baseball.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, no,
Like, I've never heard of those guys before.
So, so the rest of this, I'll try to make this fast.
welcome to It's Got Wikipedia. Lists of things.
Actually,
Got Johnny Notes.
I
Johnny
made
Notes.
these from research on the episode. I didn't refer to Wikipedia for this one.
It's got redundant research.
I probably
good for
I
you,
could probably
Dan.
put it on Wikipedia and people might not take it all down. On that same day 47, there's deck 11, section 2. There was the undetonated Chronoton torpedo,
There sure was.
and it would later detonate and somehow didn't melt everyone, even though some other shit melted some other people. Like those two
Tuvok
people
went blind.
when the doctor killed him. Yeah, it just made him blind. Day 65. Attack destroyed the power grid on deck 11. The replicator system was badly damaged. That's fucked up. By the way, how do you restock photon torpedoes? Can you just replicate them?
I don't know. I guess so.
Yeah, what do you do?
Guess it depends.
Interesting question.
They needed
I don't know. Do they use a lot of latinum in their construction? I've
Yeah.
never heard that, but that would be one thing you could say.
I don't think you use latinum enough.
Presumably you wouldn't, but it's, I don't know. Seems cool.
Yeah.
Liquid latinum seems pretty cool.
Well, I mean, there was a Reddit thread I was reading, and it was someone was asking, what's the primary source for energy in the Federation? And this is in Ask Science Fiction. Somebody answered, Starfleet engineer here.
Oh my god, that's both awesome and slightly depressing.
Yeah, I know.
Mostly awesome.
Antimatter conversion.
Well, he says, since energy can't be made, all we can do is release energy from natural sources. Okay, yeah. Onboard starships, he's really sticking with that bit. It says, we use both fusion reactors and M/AM reactors. I don't know what that is.
I've been a Starfleet engineer
okay.
for the past 30 years.
I thought this guy
We've
was
been
awesome.
using
He's starting to upset me.
We've been using antimatter.
The fusion reactors power the impulse and RCS thrusters, while the MAM reactors power the warp drive.
I mean, it all sounds right to me.
Sure.
Based on my own Starfleet.
What rank is this guy?
Yeah, he's chief engineer on the USS Humboldt, NCC 119103.
Really?
I drove through Humboldt County. That was kind of awesome.
Oh, it's probably where he's from.
That's an older ship, isn't it?
So they and the name is CTM Game. I don't know. CT.
That's the Reddit name.
Yeah, CTM must be game. It must be some kind of.
All right, everybody, look up CTM Game.
Yeah.
Or is there an underscore or anything?
Nope, just CTM Game.
CTM Game. All right, everyone, look up that user, send them friendly messages, and tell them they're great.
Yes. So maybe it's like Cards the Magic Game instead of Magic the Card Game or something. I don't know.
Magic the cards.
They are also the primary power source for the other systems like shields, weapons, gravity plating. On star bases, we only use fusion reactors since MAM reactors
I like
have
Dan's
to be...
reading style. He has this he sort of accelerates. He starts out sounding sort of like an imbecile and then accelerates into smooth talking.
I sound like an imbecile.
An imbecile.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
I know what imbecile means, but like I don't know.
Imbecile is like one of
What
those
does dumb
words
mean?
that used to be a scientific word, and like it doesn't.
Yeah, but like what?
There's no way it's a scientific word.
I'm not offended. I'm just curious. What
I don't
you
know
mean?
what it
Like I
means.
start off like sounding like
You know
an
what?
imbecile.
I think it's just I like the word. The word imbecile is probably too harsh, but it does sound nice.
So on star bases, we only use fusion
Got
reactors.
a nice set of syllables.
Since MAM reactors have to be fueled with antimatter that has to be produced artificially, while deuterium and helium-3 are comparatively plentiful.
Okay.
All right, so there's your face.
That's not imbecile.
That's not imbecile.
Imbecilic.
Trioxin and inaprovaline.
Trioxin.
He had to give her like trioxin so she could live because there was something wrong with her lung cilia.
What was it that Picard got in Picard?
Pattern Omega. They always attack Pattern Omega.
What is
Inaprovaline?
trioxin?
Oh yeah. What was? Yeah, I can't remember what the Picard one was. It was something different though.
It was different, wasn't
Was
it?
it? Yeah.
I like all the medicine names.
Yeah, it's kind of fun that they just do that. You know, that they just do that. So 65 attack destroyed power grid 11 replicators. Okay, I said that. They needed emergency rations. Environmental controls continue to fail. 7 decks have been rendered uninhabitable.
Which day was that?
65, bruh.
When did they lose the hull? The hull. You saw that hull peeling off like a.
That was fairly early.
Oh, that was
Crumbling.
like, yeah, that was like,
It was early,
that was when she went to
First
her,
couple
when
weeks.
she was like, I'm just going to go to my ready room. And it seemed like, it's the way she said it, it seemed like she was going to sit down and like have a drink, you know, but like, seemed like the appropriate thing to do, but instead she didn't. So 73, she goes, it's time we faced reality. We lost 9 decks. More than half the ship has been destroyed. Life support is nearly gone. Voyager can no longer sustain its crew. 133, Kim goes, look like a malfunction in the ventilation system. That's when the beginning of the second one where they were in that place with all that smoggy smog.
Did you want a nebula, an indoor nebula?
Yeah. But the doctor was happy to report that he repaired his optronic error in his programs. Power grid was having problems. It was 32% efficiency. She raised it. Something about warp drive. It took her 3 weeks to fix the warp drive or something. Day 180, the deflector went down. There was micrometeoroids fucking with it. Deflector controls hazard level 4.
Oh, that's the micrometeoroids. I saw them things coming up.
Yeah, 207.
Where did those come from?
207, another ruptured EPS conduit. 32, 33, 34, 35. Fluidic converter needs to be purged. Gravitational plating in this room has buckled. 226, temporal shield, 6 photon torpedoes. That's what they have left. Day 257, the ship blows up. And I forgot to mention on day 32, she broke her lucky teacup.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a little on the nose, but I still liked it.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I missed
They should have had everybody break a lucky thing.
Yeah, just
Like-
why not?
And throughout this, like at first it's her lucky teacup. That's the first thing that breaks. But then each subsequent thing for the different characters is less and less breakable. So it's like signifies the seriousness.
Like
Harry breaks his clarinet. Like
Or Tuvok towards the end of the show, Tuvok breaks his anvil. like it falls off its like, you know, its little holder thing and just splits in half. And he's like, "That's my lucky anvil."
How am I going to?
And then the audience is like, "Oh, they're in some serious shit now."
Right before that, someone breaks their titanium glasses.
Like the ones that you're supposed to be all twist up.
I had some of those.
I know. So you're all like, "Look, I can twist it up."
Do you? Can you twist them in circles?
Yes.
I don't recommend you do that.
Yeah, because then they break.
Well, they get all.
You can bend them quite a bit.
They don't break the first time you do it, but you get so addicted to twisting them in front of friends and onlookers that eventually you will have that day where they break and then everyone laughs at you.
Yeah.
And they kick you, and then you have to transfer schools because nobody will take you seriously
They're
anymore.
like 10 years old, so I don't know if they're gonna last.
All right.
My lucky teapot.
Remember when she said that? She's like, "Oh, my lucky teapot."
I
Or
do.
teacup. It sounded really weird when she said it, didn't it?
It did. It did sound a little weird.
I didn't figure she was a tea.
It sounded like it was overdubbed or
She
something.
likes coffee, but maybe she drinks coffee out of
Seems
a
like a
teacup.
coffee.
She's all about the coffee. Janeway's all about the coffee.
My lucky teacup, right over here.
Well, she was like running into like fires and.
Yeah. She protected herself with a metal plate. She ran into a fire.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna
Metal
grab this
plate.
hunk of metal.
The teacup thing that
Tell the doctor I'm going to be burned up after this.
What annoyed me about the teacup is she was all like, "Oh, my lucky teacup," but like she didn't like take special care to make sure like it was not in like a bad like if it's your lucky teacup, you can protect that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it survived. I assumed it was invincible because it survived some kind of crazy attack.
Yeah.
But then it just fell off.
You're on a spaceship.
It fell off
and
the
you're
precarious
you're
little
stranded
spot.
in the fucking Delta Quadrant. You better be keeping your lucky teacup in like the fucking shadow box or something.
Goddamn
Shadow
right.
box.
All right, so I think we can wrap it up there. The Star Trek Voyager season 4
It's
episodes
got hell.
8 and 9. It's got hell. Year of Hell.
It's got a whole year of it.
A good classic
episodes.
Voyager episode. We think they're it's not a perfect episode, but you know, it's an episode and it's enjoyable. As Dan said, what was it that you said? You were able. It wasn't too arduous.
It wasn't too arduous.
Yeah.
The concept is really great, though.
I
And Kurtwood
Yeah.
Smith rules.
I mean, I was thinking about even though the episode was half as long, the Thine Own Self, that just flew by. I know it was only half as long, but even so,
It's more engaging. It was engaging.
It's really
throughout.
engaging. And,
Every scene engaging.
and this
It's
episode,
got data.
It's got data. Yeah, that's that's
And
what it's
Troy.
called.
It had.
and Troy and the
but
Bee story.
The Voyager, but it wasn't arduous. In fact, in that I wasn't like, oh god, it was fine. It was fine. And Kurtwood Smith was really good.
Yeah,
in it,
he's
and they
he's
were all
always
really good.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? There was a side by side shot of Janeway. It was a shot on 7 of 9, and then it shot to Janeway. This popped in my head. One of them looks like an alien compared to the other. I don't know which one looks like the alien,
Janeway.
but they both look so very different from the front of the face. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so as I said, it's not arduous. Originally, I said it wasn't too difficult, and then I said it wasn't too arduous.
Do you guys have an interest in continuing the Kurtwood Smith fun joy time by
Doing another episode with
doing
Kurtwood
another
Smith.
episode with Kurtwood Smith? Because he's in a really great Deep Space Nine episode called Things Past. It's an Odo centric episode.
Yeah, let's do it.
pretty
Let's
cool.
do
I mean,
Deep
it was
Space Nine.
it was totally. We didn't even try to do like a Kurtwood Smith one this week, even though he was in.
Yeah,
in-
it just
he was
happened to
in
be like
Six,
that.
right?
It just happened to be like that because he that cool.
Well,
He
so
played one of them dog aliens.
in this episode, he plays a
Efrosian.
Cardassian named Thrax.
Thrax.
And it's a really great episode. I believe it's 5th season. I don't recall which episode number. But folks out there, you can access it on all the streaming platforms. Probably. It's the fifth season, somewhere in the 5th
all of
season.
them.
Things Past, Deep Space Nine, Things Past. We will discuss that next week. We'll be excited to do that. And then we'll probably get into some Enterprise and other stuff. And
It's got Dan Glaubitz.
it's got fucking Dan's ruling the school. And he's Mr. Notes.
Dan.
Dan is keeping Jesse and I on the straight and narrow because he's got the data.
Because I'm really serious, guys.
I'm so serious.
He has maps and charts, but we can't show those because that's ridiculous.
Jesse's normally the one with the maps.
We
but
don't even go
Jesse
there.
Jesse is an expert
yeah.
map maker.
He is. It's pretty
It's
rad.
one of his skills. Now he
is.
generally makes maps of places that don't exist.
Yeah.
He goes from the other
more-
direction. He
it
takes the
helps.
other approach to map making, which is arguably much more exciting.
I've always worried because he has maps. Jesse has just paper all over his entire walls of his house. Now we are not intending to make him sound like a fucking lunatic, right, Dan?
Yeah.
He just has paper all over his walls that he's drawn these fantastical maps.
Just one wall.
And I've always had this slight concern that yeah, I know, but in my mind it's just like all over
It's like when the serial killer has all these bloody weird drawings and like weird words about mommy hate boy or something like that. And like it's like that except
Mommy hates boy.
it's like that though, but with fun, with nice,
Pig.
but also with like light pictures
If I
of
just had
lighthouses
pig
and stuff.
on my wall written in big letters.
It's just a bunch of fantastical stuff, basically, and that's much. It's more uplifting. See, it's all about the content.
I just worry that through some sort of magical power or something, Jesse's maps will spring to life at one day.
There was this guy that came over, this contractor guy, to do some work on my house, and it turns out he was actually he paints
Chuck Norris.
and he paints really huge pictures. And he was talking to me about how you could put a frame around that if you wanted to. And I was like, what?
It could be a serious
I was
frame.
like, it goes like up my wall, like up the stairs, and like it's not even like a rectangle. Like he's like,
but
yeah,
he's a contractor.
you
He
can
wanted
have
to build you one.
I can build you a frame, and it'll have like some hinges on it. And I was like,
I'll do it
dude,
for $250.
that's crazy.
That is crazy. Are you finished with the map yet, though? These are questions I probably
Almost.
shouldn't be asking now,
Almost.
but
I'm getting there.
seems like that's something you'd be kind of ongoing. But
Anyway,
It's definitely on.
Jesse's got maps. Dan's got notes.
and this is me. I'm serious, guys. This is my new serious character. Do you like it, guys?
I'm doing this voice now.
I'm serious.
This is my
serious boy voice.
Yahoo serious.
This is my character.
All right, so Dan, we're going to try this again,
Okay.
as we do every week.
Take two.
That was a really bad character. That's dumb. Everyone's gonna hate that.
So Dan,
I disappointed everyone. Yeah. Everyone's gonna hate me.
where
No one ever
can
hates
where can people find us on the internet?
Anywhere.
www.feedback.com.
Feedback.
And that's definitely a real thing. So don't go there.
No, it's got Star Trek .feedback. No, wait. It's got Star Trek at feedback.com, right?
All right, all right. So you're getting it less correct than you did in the past, which I have no doubt is
serious one.
I'm glad you didn't ask
part of
me
the
because I
plan.
don't even know the answer.
You can go on YouTube. You can look up It's Got Star Trek.
there. That's a right one. That one
Yeah.
works.
It's definitely on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. You can go to our Facebook page.
All right.
It's Got Star Trek.
Right.
I think there's a website called It's Got Stuff.
www.itsgotstartrek.
Dibs.
It's got StarTrek.com.
It's got a Star Trek.
Got Star Chuck.
www.
Get the Star Chuck.
Dob Comedy Bobs.
Drop Comedy Box. So yeah, and then you go to Instagram. We've got some cool stuff on Instagram.
And where is it on Instagram?
It's on It's Got Star Trek
With the @ symbol.
at God, yeah, damn it.
At
I didn't say curse. I didn't do a bad curse. I said God, yeah, damn it. I didn't say God damn it.
Gosh, consarn it.
At It's Got Star Trek, Twitter, hashtag It's Got Star Trek.
no, Twitter. It's also at It's Got Star Trek. The hashtag is for the topic.
Oh, yeah.
The @ symbol is for the.
I just that was anomalous. Sorry.
Oh, man.
At It's Got Star
Dan
Trek.
works with computers.
Anomaly.
You know how when your grandma is always like your grandma's wandering around, as grandma's
Just
do.
wandering.
Yeah, well, she might have mild dementia. She's wandering around. She's telling people, my grandchild, he works with computers.
Yeah.
He works.
That's what he does.
Makes a lot of money working with computers. So Dan knows. Dan should know better. Dan
Yeah.
should know better.
I don't.
All right. So thank you, Dan, and thank you, Jesse. I will recount that real briefly, just for clarification.
Don't forget
reasons.
the feedback one, because I missed that one.
The email is feedback@itsgotstartrek.com.
That's what I said.
You can infer from the email that our website is www.itsgotstartrek.com. Social media, you can find us all over the more relevant social media platforms at It's Got Star Trek. There you go. That's what you need to know. That's it. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, go have at it. Have fun. All right. So I will say good evening. Jesse, anything you want to say to the audience?
Not particularly.
Dan, how about you?
No, that's all I have to say tonight. I appreciate everyone for coming out. So you all have a special weekend.
No,
Stay
everyone's
safe
staying
out
in.
there.
Everyone's staying in.
Okay,
Everyone's staying in.
That's what I meant.
We don't want to let the future audience know, but this is during the...
Pretty much everybody who's
Everyone's
listening
inside
is
the house.
See, guys,
There's a horrible disease and zombies outside. so we
Stay
have
in
to
and stay safe,
inside.
okay?
In the future, you might not be caring about that. Or in fact, you may want to not be thinking about that shit right now, because that's fucking some depressing shit. But that's just the case.
So stay in, stay safe, yeah.
If you're gonna go out,
Only for groceries and stuff. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
And if you're going to spew into this. Good night. Good night.
Sir, weapons are back to full capacity.
Target Voyager. Put Janeway out of her misery.
All our ships have been disabled, Captain. Do you have weapons?
Negative. Torpedo launchers are down. I'm setting a collision course. Janeway to the fleet. Take your temporal shields offline.
Captain, we won't be protected.
Exactly. If that ship is destroyed, all of history might be restored. And this is one year I'd like to forget.